Hi, I'm Flo from Progressive. Being a baseball fanatic like me can be stressful. It's not all sports points and touchdowns. So Progressive is going to help you take your mind off your team for a moment. Instead of thinking about how they missed that goal point score, think about the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, letting you choose coverage options based on your budget, unlike your team that missed the end zone net area. Well, anyway, hope this distraction about Progressive's Name Your Price tool was helpful. It sure kept me from thinking about all those penalty balls. Yay, sports!
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Oh, it is that time again. WrestleMania weekend is close. We're quickly approaching this year's WrestleMania weekend. It'll be here before you know it. And as such, as is tradition here at Voices of Wrestling, we are going to do an insanely large audio and written preview of WrestleMania weekend. We do this every single year. We always give you the cards and the full schedule up at voicesofwrestling.com. We keep track of all this shit because the promoters are pretty bad at doing it, and it's very hard to find it all in one place. But we put it all in one place. We make it easy for you to follow along and support these companies during WrestleMania weekend, so you will get the full shows, the cards, the events, the dates, the times, the locations, the streaming information, a map of how to find it, the podcast, the events, the cons, all that sort of stuff. That's all there. It's all there up at voicesofwrestling.com. So make sure you check that out. Look at the sidebar and you'll find WrestleMania Weekend 2022 schedule. But this is our massive audio preview. I don't know how many parts it's going to be. I record this part way before I record all the other stuff. So I have no idea how long this is going to be. I have no idea how many parts it's going to be. But rest assured, you are going to get the most comprehensive WrestleMania weekend preview anywhere, as we will cover every single event with a multitude of people. Will come on and join me. We will talk about the shows. We'll preview the shows. We'll discuss WrestleMania weekend. But you are going to get it from all angles. You are going to know everything you could possibly know about WrestleMania weekend. This will serve as the intro where I will take you through all of the events of WrestleMania weekend, what is coming up, what to look forward to, what matches, all this sort of stuff. Well, I'm not going to give you the matches here because, full disclosure, a lot of promoters haven't announced all their matches yet by the time that I'm recording this. So a lot of the stuff I'm going to say might be outdated. So I'm going to just talk about the events, the time, the addresses, quick little pithy thoughts about each event, and then we'll move on. But by the time we record with most of our additional guests, the hope is that a lot of these do have cards or full cards, or, well, some card at least. Something that we can say, hey, if you're coming to Dallas, Texas for this weekend, here's what you're going to be able to see for your money. It's a wild proposition, a wild idea. But yes, the idea is that they present a list of things. You then say, hey, here's money. I would like to go watch that list of things. And then that's how you do it. But right now, you give them money, and then you don't know what you're going to see, which is not great. But that's WrestleMania weekend for you. But some of these events do have good cards, so I don't want to single out the ones who aren't doing a good job, because there are a few out here that have full cards, or at least relatively full cards. But again, as of this recording of this intro, I'm not confident enough in a lot of the other cards to go over the matches here, so I'm just going to talk about the events, talk about the basic schedule with you. So let's do this. Again, voicesofwrestling.com. I have no idea how many parts this preview is going to be, but strap in and get ready, because we're going to cover a lot of shit over the next X amount of hours and the next X amount of parts of this WrestleMania weekend preview. But let's get into the weekend itself. It is starting off Thursday, March 31st, of course, in the Dallas, Texas area. So if you're traveling down Thursday, you're going to be already able to kick it off with a bunch of events going on. And there's also streaming information about all of these as well, again, at voicesofwrestling.com. There's the collective bundle. If you're looking for just a bundle of, hey, what's one thing that I can just watch everything on, the collective bundle is available at voicesofwrestling.com/fight. Make sure you use that link. That'll help us out tremendously. There is also the Fight Fest 2022 bundle, and that is mostly the WrestleCon stuff, the stuff happening at the Fairmount Hotel in Dallas. And again, that is available at voicesofwrestling.com if you're looking for that info as well. But let's kick it off with Thursday, March 31st. This is the first official event of WrestleMania weekend. Thursday, March 31st, Glory Pro Wrestling's Cemetery Gates, taking place at 11 a.m. from the Embarcadero building in Dallas, Texas. This is the Fair Park in Dallas, Texas as well, if you're trying to And then I guess everything's going on in that one building, but the Fair Park in Dallas is where you're going to want to be for the events. And that will be available. That will be streaming live on Fight and also the collective bundle as well. Again, voicesofwrestling.com/fight for that. 3 p.m. on Thursday, Josh Barnett's Bloodsport 8, also from the Fair Park in Dallas, Texas. That is also available via the collective bundle or individually at voicesofwrestling.com/fight. Bloodsport 8. Josh Barnett's Bloodsport 8. Technically, I think his Bloodsport 7, I forget what the numbering is, but looks like a pretty fun card. And Bloodsports are always a highlight of Mania Weekend. Then it looks like we get into some fun stuff here with AAA invading WrestleCon. Yes, the stars of Lucha Libre AAA are showing up here. This is available on the Fight Fest bundle over at voiceswrestling.com/fight. You're going to get Psycho Clown, you're going to get Black Tauros, you're going to get Laredo Kid, you're going to get a lot of really, really fun stuff here on the show. That is going to be from the Fairmont Hotel, again, in Dallas, Texas, where it's where all the WrestleCon stuff is happening. And then from the Regella Theater, I think I'm saying it right. I don't know if I am saying it right. If I'm not, I'm sorry. I apologize. But taking place from that theater in Fort Worth, Texas, is Insane Hardcore Wrestling's Extreme Combat. Insane Hardcore Wrestling Extreme Combat, 5 p.m. Fort Worth, Texas. Yep. 7 p.m. Iconic Heroes Wrestling Excellence. Old School Hustle. Iconic Heroes Wrestling Excellence, Old School Hustle, 7 p.m. from the Regella Theater in Fort Worth, Texas. Then we go back to Dallas at Gillies, MLW's Intimidation Games. Why did I say imitation? Intimidation Games. That would be a terrible... Anyway, Intimidation Games, 7 p.m., Gillies, Dallas, Texas. Then also at 7 p.m., there's a lot going on at 7 p.m., by the way. So you got to be in like 6 places at once if you're going to catch all these. You're not going to. ROW and WCPW Texas Showdown, Don't Mess with Texas. That is going on that night as well, 7 p.m., Southern Junction, Texas, in Irving, Texas. Then at Gillies, 8 p.m., Control Your Narrative, Awakening. Yes, Control Your Narrative is back. They're going to be at WrestleMania Weekend at Gillies, Dallas, Texas, 8 p.m. Joey Janela's Spring Break 6, Part 1 from the Fair Park in Dallas, Texas. That's going to be at 8 p.m. That is going to be available on Fight TV, the collective bundle as well. You got the Mark Hitchcock Memorial Super Show, 9 p.m. from the Fairmont Hotel, Dallas, Texas, another WrestleCon one. That'll also be available over at Fight. Dark Arts Entertainment and Full-Blown Pro Wrestling Ghouls Night Out. 8 p.m., the Upper 90 Soccer Center in Arlington, Texas. And then at 11:59 p.m., GCW's Planet Death from the Fair Park in Dallas, Texas. So that rounds out our Thursday. We start things off then on Friday, bright and early, JCW versus LA Fights. JCW, not GCW, JCW versus LA Fights. That's at 11 a.m. from the Fair Park in Dallas, Texas. That will also be available on Fight. ROW and WCPW Texas Showdown, Don't Mess with Texas, Day 2, 11 a.m. Southern Junction, Texas, Irving, Texas. That is actually available on Fight as well. There's a bundle if you want to watch all the ROW stuff. There's an ROW Texas bundle, and there's also just individual shows also available at voicesofwrestling.com/fight. For the Culture, 3 p.m. from the Fair Park, Dallas, Texas. A real fun event. The past few years should be another good one. This time that will be available on the collective. And they got a much, much, much better time slot this time as well. Usually they're not stuffing them at 11:59 p.m. or whatever, 3 p.m. on Friday. That's a big time for the Culture. So hopefully there's a good crowd for that event. 1 p.m. Zicky Dice's Trouble in Paradise 2. Sorry, we're jumping ahead or jumping back and forth here. I messed up my order, but Zicky Dice's Trouble in Paradise 2. That's from the Fairmont Hotel in Dallas, Texas. And then MLW Azteca Underground. That will be at 2 p.m. from Gillies in Dallas, Texas. Zello Pro, company from my neck of the woods, will be down in Fort Worth at the Regella Theater. They'll be in Fort Worth, Texas at 4 p.m. New Japan Pro Wrestling Lone Star Shootout, 5 p.m. Fairmont Hotel in Dallas, Texas. That's going to be one to definitely keep your eye on there. Zoa Live, which is 01 USA. Guava Mania 2 Cover All Bases. That will be taking place at 7 p.m. from, ironically enough, a venue called Cover All Bases in Arlington, Texas. Then you have Texas Style Wrestling from Addison, Texas. 4700 West Grove. I don't know if that's just like some dude's house or that's a venue or whatever, but Texas Style Wrestling is going to be there. Scheduled to appear. All I know is I see Rodney Mack listed, so hell yeah, there we go. Texas Style Wrestling. Go see some Rodney Mack. Ring of Honor's Supercard of Honor 2022. That'll be taking place at 7 p.m. from the Curtis Colwell Center in Garland, Texas. Famous spot for AEW. Goes there plenty as well. Gringo Locos The World on Lucha. That's going to be taking place at 7:30 from the Fair Park in Dallas, Texas. Also streaming live on Fight. DFW All Pro Wrestling. That's from Firehouse Gastro. 8 p.m. Grand Prairie, Texas. Again, it just sounds like I'm reading things. Well, I am, but voiceswrestling.com if you want to see the schedule listed in a little bit of a better way than just me reading things on audio. But hopefully you're enjoying this and starting to plan out the shows you want to go to and the shows you don't want to go to as I'm reading them here. WWE World Wrestling Entertainment is coming to WrestleMania weekend here with SmackDown. That's going to be at 8 p.m. From the American Airlines Center in Dallas, Texas. No Peace Underground and New Fear City are presenting Murder Mania at 8 p.m. Creators Don't Die. That's the name of the venue. Creators Don't Die in Dallas, Texas. Martinez Entertainment is presenting a lucha show. 8:30 p.m. Upper 90 Soccer Center from Arlington, Texas. So far we have Hilo Del Santo, Ultimo Dragon, some other guy. Shocker is going to be there. Hio Del Fishman. I mean, you got some pretty fun stuff here. So that's a show to definitely check out if you get a chance. Upper 90 Soccer Center, 8:30 p.m. Martinez Entertainment. Impact Wrestling Multiverse of Matches. I want to die when I read that name. Multiverse of Matches. 9 p.m. at Fairmount Hotel, Dallas, Texas. That is going to be available on the Fight Fest bundle over at voicesofwrestling.com/fight. World Class Pro Wrestling. Not that world class, but kind of that world class. They do kind of own the rights to that world class. It's weird. They're going to be TBD at the Southern Junction in Irving, Texas. So, guys, we're getting close. Let's figure the TBD. It's in like 2 weeks, guys. Let's go. Zicky Dice's Trouble in Paradise 2 from the Fairmount Hotel, Dallas, Texas. Also TBD. Also, guys, come on. What's going on? Let's go here. We're right at the weekend. Let's figure out what time our event's going to be. Saturday, April 2nd, technically Saturday, April 2nd, but bleeding in to Friday. Joey Janela's Spring Break 6, Part 2. That's going to be midnight, early morning, Saturday, April 2nd from the Fair Park in Dallas, Texas. You got Chris Dickinson and Matt Cardona, Manora Suzuki, Effie, and plenty more on that event. That, of course, is available streaming on Fight. Then you have Impact's Provincial Wrestling Federation. I don't know what this is. This is at midnight for some reason. I don't know why, but it's a show that Impact is doing from the Fairmount Hotel in Dallas, Texas. NXT Stand and Deliver. Yes, not your father's takeover, because it's at 11 a.m. in the American Airlines Center, Dallas, Texas. World Class Pro Wrestling and Reality of Wrestling present the Sherry Martel Women's Classic. That's going to be at 11 a.m. Southern Junction, Texas, Irving, Texas. Also streaming on Fight. WrestleCon USA versus the World, 11 a.m. from the Fairmount Hotel in Dallas, Texas. Available on the Fight Fest bundle or individually at Fight. That looks like a hell of a show. Just from what's been announced so far. And if they keep announcing what they're going to keep announcing, I mean, this is going to be one to definitely circle on your calendar if you're going to be in the area. Effie's Big Gay Brunch, always a fun time there at 11 a.m. Fair Park, Dallas, Texas. Also streaming live on Fight. Texas Mania 3 River City Wrestling. That's going on at 12 p.m. from St. Jude Hall in Arlington, Texas. Now, this is going to be kind of a collective of shows, this Texas Mania stuff, where all the Texas companies came together, rented out a venue, and are going to be running shows all day on Saturday. You have Turning Point Turmoil Roughhouse taking place from, ironically enough, Turning Point Beer at 2 p.m. in Bedford, Texas. You have Soar Pro Wrestling. That's going to be taking place at 2 p.m. from the Rail Club Live in Fort Worth, Texas. Mission Pro Wrestling Bangers with a Z only. That's at 3 p.m. from the Fair Park in Dallas, Texas. Texas Mania 3 Gulf Coast Wrestling Alliance. That's at 3 p.m. St. Jude Hall, Arlington, Texas. Rampage Wrestling, 4 p.m. from Tulips, FTW, Fort Worth, obviously. Tulips, Fort Worth, Texas, 4 p.m. Rampage Wrestling. Texas Mania 3 Hybrid, that's at 6 p.m. St. Jude Hall, Arlington, Texas. And then Unsanctioned Pro Mulligan, That's at 7 p.m. from Fair Park in Dallas, Texas, also streaming on Fight. This is Manly. This is Manly. And This is Manly is going to take place at 7:30 p.m. from Tulips, Fort Worth, Texas, 7 p.m. on Saturday. Then, again, World Wrestling Entertainment coming pretty big with this weekend. They decided to hold WrestleMania, apparently the 38th of these WrestleManias. This is going to be WrestleMania Saturday, or as it's known by actual humans, WrestleMania 38, Night 1, 8 p.m., AT&T Stadium, Arlington, Texas. Charlotte Flair, Ronda Rousey, Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, Ray and Dominic. Surely that will make Joe care when he's at WrestleMania 38. Ray and Dominic versus The Miz and Logan Paul. Then you have a real fun show here, Lucha Maniacs, taking place at 8 p.m. They're going up against WrestleMania. Come to the Upper 90 Soccer Center in Arlington, Texas, and you're gonna get. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not ACH and Laredo Kid. Come on, ACH and Laredo Kid. Sounds a lot better than WrestleMania, man. 8 p.m. Lucha Maniacs, Upper 90 Soccer Center. Something called Metroplex is taking place at 8:30 p.m. from 510 Hardwood Road. Again, that might be some guy's house. I don't know. Bedford, Texas. Texas Mania 3 Inspire Pro, friend of the show, Biss. Justin Bissonette. 9 p.m. St. Jude Hall, Arlington, Texas. Fuck WrestleMania. Go watch Davey Richards versus Great Scott. Go watch Brian Keith versus Gary J. Go watch Arrow Boy versus Prince Adam. Screw WrestleMania. Who needs that shit? Go to Inspire Pro. God damn it. Texas Mania 3, New Texas Pro, Cowboys from Hell. That's going to be taking place at 11:59 from St. Jude Hall in Arlington, Texas. And then World Class Pro Wrestling and Reality of Wrestling, they're also doing apparently another Sherry Martel Women's Classic, but that's TBD. Southern Junction, Irving, Texas. That might be an air. I'm not sure. You might want to check if you were planning on going to the Sherry Martel Women's Classic. I don't know if it's a one-show event. They're going to go through the entire tournament in the one show, but as far as I know, it is happening later in the day, but that is TBD of when that's going to happen. So, I don't know. We do our best, but you're going to have to look up some of this stuff on your own if you're going to go, because we try, but we're trying to keep track of a lot of different stuff here. And in the year 2022, people that are supposed to promote things aren't very good at promoting them. So there ends up becoming some issues here and there. But that's not why you called. Sunday, April 3rd, early Sunday morning, midnight, Black Label Pros Norm, taking place from the Fair Park in Dallas, Texas. Faces of Fear versus the Workhorsemen. One of the main attractions there. Texas Mania 3, Texas All-Star Wrestling, taking place at 12 p.m. from St. Jude Hall in Arlington, Texas. Texas Mania 3, Global Wrestling Federation. I don't know if it's the same global. Maybe they have the rights to it. I don't know. 3 p.m. St. Jude Hall, Arlington, Texas. Texas Mania 3, Laredo Wrestling Alliance, taking place at 6 p.m. from St. Jude Hall. And then WWE wants one more night of your money for World Wrestling Entertainment WrestleMania Sunday, a.k.a. WrestleMania 38 Night 2, taking place at 8 p.m. AT&T Stadium, Arlington, Texas. Title for title, Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns. Then you have World Class Pro Wrestling and Reality of Wrestling's Texas Legends. That is TBD from the Southern Junction in Irving, Texas. Texas Mania 3, New Texas Pro, Texas Till I Die. They once again are saying, fuck WrestleMania. Come watch Brian Keith. Come watch Davey Richards. Come watch Willow Nightingale. Come watch Mysterious Q. Screw that other stuff. So good on them. Texas Mania 3, New Texas Pro, Texas Till I Die. 9 p.m. St. Jude Hall, Arlington, Texas. Then you have Texas Mania 3 VIP Wrestling at 11 p.m. from St. Jude Hall in Arlington, Texas. As far as I know right now, Manora Suzuki will be there at that show. So you can check that out. As we mentioned again, that's it. That's it for the events. I'm done. Those are the events. So I'll go over some other stuff. Those are the wrestling events. There are some wrestling adjacent events that we're going to go to in a bit. As I mentioned, though, if you're trying to get on streaming, GCW is the collective. You're going to get 12 pro wrestling events. You're going to save $37 by buying the entire bundle. $139.99 for that bundle. It is available at voicesofwrestling.com/fight. On Fight, just go to voicesofwrestling.com as well, and there's an embed link for you to just order it right there if you'd like. The Fight Fest 2022 bundle as well is going to get 3 full days of wrestling events. That is available for just $79.99, and that will get you WrestleCon, the Impact stuff, New Japan, and some other things as well. There's also the Reality of Wrestling Texas bundle. You are going to get 3 days and 3 special events of reality and wrestling and world-class pro wrestling. That is available for $29.99 over at Fight. All right, some other stuff going on as well. Miscellaneous events, podcasts, live shows, all that other stuff. GCW is doing their World Fair from the Creative Arts Building in Fair Park in Dallas, Texas. That will be 17,000 square feet of vendors, exhibits, stage shows, podcasts, all that other stuff. Also, WrestleCon as well, taking place at the Fairmont Hotel in Dallas, Texas. Thursday, March 31st, Ron Killings live in concert. Yes, Ron, the Truth Killings will be live in concert at the Haltom Theater in Haltom City, Texas, 8 p.m. Thursday, March 31st. The Major Wrestling Figure Podcast will be live as well, 10 p.m. on Thursday from Scout in Dallas, Texas, scheduled to appear right now. Matt Cardona, Brian Myers, Chelsea Green, Swoggle, and Smart Mark Sterling. That will also stream on Fight. So if you can't be there, if you can't be here live for the Major Figure Wrestling Podcast, don't worry. You can watch it on Fight as well. Friday, April 1st at 7 p.m. from Gillies in Dallas, Texas. Super Show Live. Jeff Hardy, Eric Bischoff, Jeff Jarrett, and Conrad Thompson. That also, for some inexplicable reason, is streaming. So if you really, really care to hear Jeff Jarrett and Eric Bischoff and Jeff Hardy talk, then, well, you can do that on Fight, or you can get tickets as well. Friday, April 1st, Gillies in Dallas, Texas. WWE Hall of Fame, 10 p.m., American Airlines Center, Dallas, Texas. You're going to see The Undertaker. You're going to see Sharmell. You're going to see, insert who else they decide to bring over the next few days. But yeah, there you go. Kevin Nash presents Shenanigans VIP Party, Dallas, 10 p.m., Gillies, Dallas, Texas. That is also going to be on Friday, April 1st. Scheduled to appear as of this recording is Kevin Nash, Al Snow, Scotty Tuati, Cal Val, X-Pac, Renee Michelle, Eric Bischoff, Jeff Jarrett, and Conrad Thompson. Saturday, April 2nd, you got the Mania Club WrestleMania 38 tailgate party going on Saturday, April 2nd at 11:30 a.m. from AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Sunday, April 3rd, bright and early, you got the Texas Legends Convention. That's going on at Southern Junction, Texas, Irving, Texas, 9 a.m. And then a follow-up Mania Club, obviously doing their tailgate party again on Sunday. That's at 11:30 a.m., AT&T Stadium, Arlington, Texas. And then finally, last but not least, Ric Flair's official VIP Mania Party, 3 p.m. on Sunday from Boiling Tales Company in Arlington, Texas, scheduled to appear as of this recording. Ric Flair, Diamond Dallas Page, Kevin Nash, and Jake the Snake Roberts. All right, so that is your WrestleMania weekend lineup. Now we are going to get wild here as we are going to preview as many of the events as we can. Usually we get to every single one. There's maybe one or two stragglers, but we're going to try to do every single one. Again, I'm recording this before I record all the other parts, so there might be 20 parts. This thing might be 20 hours. This thing might be 7 hours. I have no idea. I haven't recorded them yet. Ideally, they're going to be less than 20 hours, but you never know, man. It's WrestleMania weekend, and we got 59 wrestling shows going on, so there's going to be a lot of stuff to cover, a lot of events, a lot of matches to talk about, so we will do what we can. But this has been the intro, and enjoy the rest of the preview. VoicesOfWrestling.com again. You go there to see the entire schedule and order all of the shows. Also, voicesofwrestling.com/fights. Thank you so much for listening, and enjoy the rest of the preview. And to help us kick off our WrestleMania weekend preview coverage, it's Jeremy Sexton. Jeremy, how's it going?
Doing good, getting prepped for Bloodsport Weekend.
Yeah, Bloodsport Weekend, as it's affectionately known by everybody. At Jeremy Sexton on Twitter, if you want to follow him. So this is a yearly tradition now. I think, at least 3 years of you coming on here and talking Bloodsport with me.
At least ready. 3, yeah.
Yeah, at least 3, maybe 4. I've kind of lost track of the Bloodsports. But yeah, we're at Bloodsport 8, baby. Although I think, is this still, I forget the naming mechanisms. Isn't this technically Bloodsport 9?
Yes, because they don't count the Matt Riddle Bloodsport in the Josh Barnett naming. So.
Right, so this is Bloodsport. This is GCW, Josh Barnett's Bloodsport 8, Bloodsport 9, I think, is how it should probably be known by everybody. But anyway, this is a weirdly And we'll talk about we'll talk about the show in a sec, but I wanted to first, and I'm trying to do this with everybody that we come on here and give the previews, is kind of taking their temperature on Mania Weekend for everybody this week, because it does feel like a pretty tough Mania Weekend for a lot of people, and it does feel like the general excitement level is pretty low overall from, what I've just noticed from the buzz and whatnot. So I'm trying to, when we do these previews, everybody comes on, I kind of want to take their temperature on Mania Weekend. Where are you, Jimmy? Where are you right now with Mania Weekend and quote unquote excitement level or anticipation for it coming up?
Yeah, I'm not over the moon about it. I mean, some of the events that every year I check out, I'll probably still watch. I'm just not I'm not looking forward to any of it the way that I used to. But I mean, looking at some of the matches here that you can see all laid out only exclusively at voicesofwrestling.com.
Oh, man.
Because none of these promotions can get their poop in a group and actually host these anywhere. But I mean, there's a show here, the Mark Hitchcock Memorial Super Show, that I had never heard of until right now. But it's got Biff Busick versus Manora Suzuki, the Briscoes versus Homicide and Low-Key, Ishii versus Timothy Thatcher, and Onita's going to be on it. That sounds fun.
Yes.
I don't know.
Uh-oh, sounds like Jeremy's looking up plane tickets. I don't know. Maybe. Oh, you could drive. It's not that bad of a drive. You could do that if you needed to.
Yeah,
but, Yeah, I think that's, my thought on Mania Weekend is kind of the same as you. It's there's stuff that I like. There's shows that I like. There's matches that I like. It doesn't feel like an appointment viewing weekend. It doesn't feel like a weekend that oh my God, you're totally going to feel like you missed out by not going. But it feels like one that if you're not doing anything or you're home on Friday or Saturday or whatever, there's plenty to watch, or Thursday as well. There's plenty to watch. There's plenty to kind of check out and there's probably going to be a bunch to enjoy. It just doesn't have that same oomph, that gravitas that it seemed to have a couple years ago. And even last year during the pandemic, it did feel at least hey, it's something different. It's something to kind of take your mind off of whatever. Some of the shows are going to be outside. So, there was some fun, interesting aspects of it last year. Whereas this year, I don't know, it doesn't feel as fun's not the right word. It just doesn't, I don't know. There's just something, there's some oomph missing from it. There's that, you're not going to have FOMO from not going type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's just so much pro wrestling nowadays that it's hey, do you want a bunch more pro wrestling? You're not really.
Not a lot. There's so much to watch already. Yeah, that you're right. There might be something to that, because it did feel like there was a certain time where, going back a couple years ago, where it was oh crap, Ring of Honor is going to be there and they're going to stream it live, and Evolve's going to be there, DGUSA and all that stuff's going to be there, and it did, I guess, feel a little bit like the one wrestling weekend, and I'm recording these out of order, but I think yours is going to be the first one that airs. So I don't want to give a kind of quote unquote spoiler alerts here, but some people brought up some good points as well. That there's like you said that yeah, there's a lot of other wrestling to check out. There's a lot of other wrestling to watch, but there also does feel like there are other wrestling weekends now. In that sense, All Out feels
True.
like a very wrestling weekend. Double or Nothing, that feels like they've done some other shows. Other places have done shows. So now there's a real argument that WrestleMania Weekend, it's still the best. It's still the one that everybody kind of goes to. It's still got the most shows, but it's not completely out of the realm of possibility that you would say, you know what? I'm going to go to one wrestling weekend this year. I'm going to go to All Out weekend. Hey, it's in Chicago. This is going to run here. This, I kind of like that. Or, hey, Double or Nothing's in Vegas. It does feel like we have more appointment, travel wrestling shows than we had even a couple years ago, thanks to AEW.
Yeah, and if you go to All Out or you go to Double or Nothing, the odds of you seeing that year's best show are much, much higher than if you go to Mania Weekend. Obviously, it's not going to be WrestleMania, but I mean, I don't think you can undersell how much we're going to miss NXT at this, because yes, they're there, but it's at 11 a.m. on a Friday or something, or a Saturday.
Not the best time slot for the Rainbow brand there. No, yeah, it is. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you could always rely on the takeover, and we always, the thing that Joe and I would always say on the Flagship is never bet against the takeover. We would always go into these shows going, I don't know, this card looks okay, and then it would fucking blow the doors off. It'd be incredible. It'd be the show of the weekend every single weekend. That's a great point. That. Yeah, this year's NXT is it's there, but yeah, I mean, no one's circling that as something that's going to be must see.
I mean, we used to have, Bailey versus Sasha Banks. This year we have Mandy Rose versus Cora Jade. Like, it's just not the same. Like, they're not trying to do the same thing. It's just a completely different product. And so as a result, it's like, well, you had a big Ring of Honor show, you had the big NXT show, you had Spring Break, you had Bloodsport, and just like from that alone, you're like, great, this is going to be awesome. Now, you don't really have a great Ring of Honor show because Ring of Honor is kind of in limbo. And even when it wasn't, it still was kind of, since 2019, basically, it hasn't been the same. You don't have NXT. And then, GCW's sort of been rated, and the cards for that don't necessarily look as much fun as they have in the past. Though they did book Maven this year, so you got to.
They did, yeah. They do have Maven, so there is certainly that. Yeah, I mean, like of the shows that I've if I were going to Mania Weekend, like the Lucha shows stand out to me. I think there's some really fun stuff on a lot of the Lucha shows. Bloodsport, as always, it would be a show that I would definitely go to, and we'll get to that in a moment. And then, like you said, some of the WrestleCon stuff looks pretty cool. USA versus the World and Mark Hitchcock. So there's enough there, but you're right. It doesn't feel like a must, like a weekend that you're really going to miss out on. If you don't go, yeah, you might miss a few good matches, but it doesn't feel like, oh crap, I'm going to miss like the show of the year, the match of the year, that sort of stuff. You're probably not going to have any of that sort of FOMO after Mania Weekend this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think this year, as far as, Joe talks about his path to greatness and all that, the path to greatness for me is probably going to be, I'll watch Bloodsport live, and then I'll wait for the dirtbags to watch everything else and tell me what's good, and then go check those matches.
That is a great path to take. Certainly a great path. Well, let's get into the Josh Barnett's Bloodsport 8. So, interestingly enough, Thursday, March 31st, this is, I believe, the second official Mania Weekend show. So it's just being beat by Glory Pro Wrestling's Cemetery Gates, which is at the tough 11 a.m. on Thursday time slot, which cannot be good for the live attendance. And then Bloodsport right after that from the Fair Park in Dallas. That's where all the collective GCW stuff is going to be at. What do you think of that time slot for Bloodsport? Now, Bloodsport has very often been, in the afternoons, and that's kind of been its typical spot. 3 p.m. seems right about where they were in prior years. But did you maybe think that this year they would get a little bit better billing, or are you fine with it being 3 p.m. on a Thursday still?
I think I'm fine with it being the 3 p.m. show, because I think it sort of gears people up for the weekend, which is kind of funny because it's like very much not the same as any other show you're going to see that weekend. So you might think like, oh, it could be nice slotted somewhere else to give you a little bit of a break. But I think the way that you just come right out of the gate with boom, here's Bloodsport, and there's going to be some bigger names on it. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be different. Kind of sets the tone for the weekend. And it's done that, I want to say, pretty much every year, like going back to Matt Riddle's Bloodsport. That was like a 3 p.m. show, too.
Yeah, I think this has been the traditional time slot. And I think one thing and I kind of agree with you as well. Like, in one breath, I kind of were like, oh, man, like Bloodsport should probably get a better billing. But I like the tradition has kind of kept alive with that. And also the thing about the Bloodsport is every single time you're guaranteed to have a super hot crowd, because a lot of those people have either just gotten in that day, they just landed a couple hours ago. Like that, when I went to Bloodsport in New York, that was I had landed and we messed around for, I don't know, 3 hours, and then we went to Bloodsport. We were like, hell yeah, wrestling, let's go. And we were nuts. Everybody was going nuts because you're just an uncaged animal ready for a weekend of wrestling. So it kind of, in one respect, it does kind of work. It seems like an interesting time slot. It seems like a time slot that you might think, oh man, that's not really a good billing. But like, for all the reasons you pointed out, it is good billing. I mean, the crowds are always hot, and it does set the tone for a weekend. It does kind of get everybody hyped up and ready to go for the weekend. So yeah, I still like the 3 p.m. time slot. It kind of stinks, it being on a Thursday. Maybe they could maximize their attendance, but it does feel like they always do pretty good attendance for Bloodsport. So hopefully there's no change here for Bloodsport.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like a wrestling show. You want to either be the last match or the first match,
yeah,
and so
exactly.
And then you've got Zicky Dice's Trouble in Paradise as your cool down before the main event. So.
Right, absolutely. So let's get into some of the matches here on Bloodsport 8. Now, in prior years, you've previewed this as if they were shoot fights, if I remember correctly. Are you keeping that tradition alive, or are we just going to talk about these matches? How'd you want to do this?
Oh, we will also. I mean, that it's always been just tacked on to the end of it here. I will make a ruling as to the what if it were real championships. Who would win these matches?
Hell yeah, I'm excited. All right, we'll start here with Bad Dude Tito and Royce Isaacs.
Bad Dude Tito and Royce Isaacs. I still remain unconvinced that Tito is a bad dude.
Yeah, he doesn't seem that bad. No, he's not that bad. Like, yeah, he comes out and you think he's going to be more bad, and he's not that bad. He's like an okay dude. Like, I don't know if I want to hang out with Bad Dude Tito, but yeah, he doesn't seem like a bad dude.
Like, and I don't think he's like a bad dude in terms of like, fighting bad dude, like that old Nintendo game. Are you a bad enough dude to save the president?
Oh, bad dudes.
He's probably not.
Yeah, no.
No, Tito probably isn't. I don't know. Like, he doesn't really do a lot for me. I'd rather Royce Isaacs have a better opponent on here. See, what they should have done, without jumping ahead too far, is give me Royce Isaacs and JR Kratos and then swap their opponents. So there's just one match that I can just, go make a sandwich for or whatever. But
I'm with you. Spoiler, I am with you. I think. We'll find out. I don't know. But I think I'm with you. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Royce Isaacs is pretty good at this blood sport stuff and just at pro wrestling in general. So hopefully he can do something with Tito here. And yeah, I mean, if it were real, weight classes exist for a reason. But, I mean, Royce Isaacs seems to just know more. Like, he's got that New Japan training and stuff like that, right? He's in the strong dojo.
Yeah. I think he's got some good technique too. Yeah, I think Isaacs could probably. He's probably not going to beat you in a slugfest, but I think he could probably tap you out or something, right?
Yeah. I mean, as long as Tito doesn't have access to weapons or something, then I think Royce Isaacs has it.
This is a match that I'm very much looking forward to. Mike Bailey, Speedball Mike Bailey versus Yuya Uemura. So this is a guy who looks like he knows karate, but I'm not sure if he actually knows karate, versus a New Japan Dojo trainee who doesn't really show too much of like kind of the ground game, stuff. But you'd imagine coming up in that dojo, doing stuff with Yuji Nagata, like, I mean, my man could definitely, shoot fight style, like I think I'm going with Yuya Uemura here for sure, right? Like I don't know Mike Bailey's background. Is he actually like a karate guy? Like I don't think so though, right?
I doubt it.
Or Taekwondo. Sorry, he's gonna get very mad. I believe it's Taekwondo is his
Taekwondo's kind of like the most fake mixed martial art. Like, I mean, it's good and all, but like every time there was someone in the UFC that like their specialty is Taekwondo, they would just get taken down and just beaten to like death. I have
they're
no
not graded
idea
on technique. They're graded on winning a fight, which doesn't tell you know what I mean? Like, he's well balanced and good technique. Oh, he just got punched, and now he's dead, and now he's done. Okay, well,
there's a couple techniques from Taekwondo that like GSP used to use a spinning back kick from Taekwondo a lot in his fights and stuff that actually Joe Rogan taught him. Just random thing because Joe Rogan is a black belt in Taekwondo. That's what they need to do. Josh Barnett's friends with Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan needs to work that's a draw. Now you're talking about. Then you got to move that. I think then you got to move the show from Thursday. I don't think it can be on Thursday at 3 p.m. That thing should if you could get him, that'd be a big draw. But Taekwondo black belt for Mike Bailey. So I apologize for calling him a karate guy. I was very wrong. He is a black belt in Taekwondo. So that I guess this makes the match a little bit different. I think even just blood sport wise, like I am really looking forward to this thing to see Mike Bailey a little bit out of his element. I think Yuya Uemura has been great in the other blood sport stuff that I've seen of him. So this is one of my more anticipated matches on this entire show. Oh yeah, I have no idea what it's going to look like now. Knowing that Bailey has a legit black belt in Taekwondo, that's kind of fun. Who knows? Like they could just go out there and just exchange strikes. Uemura could try to ground him, and they could do some fun stuff with that. Like
could be high flying.
These guys are both good pro wrestlers. Like it should just be good.
Zeta Zhang versus Marina Shafir.
I did not.
Oh, sorry.
I have not given.
Oh, you haven't given your ruling.
Final ruling
right.
So I would say, just based on size and the grappling training that Uemura has, if he can get his hands on him, I picture there was a former Bellator fighter, Joe Warren, who was cornering. I forget who he was cornering, but you could hear him on the broadcast just yelling, "Get your hands on him!" He needs that guy in his corner, and he needs to just get his hands on Mike Bailey. And I feel like if he does, it's a wrap. So I would take Uemura.
Incredible. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I hope you know what, Yuji Nagata should come with him, and then like there's no chance. I mean, he would definitely win then. I mean,
that would be
Yuji Nagata. I mean, Yuji Nagata knows how to not win shoot fights, but maybe he could give him advice on how to not win a shoot fight. You know what I mean? Like, don't do what I did and do
exactly
the opposite of what I did.
Watch out for that. I need Nagata in a track suit at ringside for this match.
Yes, that'd be incredible. But all right, move on to a women's match here. A few women's matches on this show. Zeta Zhang and Marina Shafir here. So I'd imagine not to jump ahead, but I have a feeling of who you think is going to win in the shoot fight, and it's probably the trained fighter versus Zeta. But I guess I don't want to spoil. We'll do that at the end. So we'll start with the shoot fight or the blood sport preview of Zhang and Shafir here.
Yeah, Zhang. I've only really seen her once, and that was her AEW Dark match against Thunder Rosa. So, hey, great opponent to be out there with. And I'm not really sure why AEW didn't sign her, because she looked a little slow motion at times, like a lot of them sort of do coming in. But they give TV time to way worse women. And so, like, Zeta, she's not too shabby. Shafir, I've never been impressed with. I guess with the exception of she had a pretty good match with Masha Slamovich at Bloodsport 6 or 7, the last one that was in October. They had a pretty good match, and they had some tricks up their sleeve to like really get the crowd into it. And so I'm kind of like cautiously optimistic that this might be pretty good.
Yeah, and I'm with you on Zeta. I think she's pretty solid. She does have an MMA background, which you know, I don't know how extensive of an MMA background, but enough where she looks pretty competent doing, you know, certain aspects of that in her wrestling, and it does show. It absolutely shows in the wrestling. So I'm with you. I would have probably signed her up in AEW just to kind of have on you know, in the reserves, you know, just to have on Dark or whatever. You can kind of get her, you know, legs under her again and get her working a little bit. But I do think that she has some potential for sure. And her Bloodsport stuff's been pretty good. And I'm with you that Shafir's Bloodsport stuff has been really good. Like, that was one of my worries, is that maybe she wouldn't quite get it. Shafir, you know, and that's always an issue when you have somebody who, you know, a lot of these people are like, yeah, I'm a black belt in this, or yeah, I do this. But like, when you have somebody who's actually done like multiple, you know, real fights or whatever, sometimes I didn't know if she was going to fully get it or get what Bloodsport kind of is looking to be or it's supposed to be, but she absolutely did. Like you said, that Masha Slamovich match was really, really good and did stand out. So I'm very interested in how this one goes, and they've kind of built this up. This has been kind of, there's a story to this match as well. There's some background. They've called each other out for a little while. So I'm fully expecting this one to be really, really good between these two. So hopefully it delivers.
I mean, hopefully they just you know, charge at each other and just right from the jump get it going, nice and quick, and kind of like the Slamovich match that you know, had him like falling out of the ring, and then there was a tope and stuff, but it made sense, and like it was good stuff. And so yeah, I'm hoping that they can recapture some of that magic here with this. Now, if this were a real fight, you've got Zeta Zhang, who's taken one amateur fight that she won, but Marina Shafir has a handful of amateur fights that she was undefeated, and I think she went 1-1 as a pro. And she has the extensive judo background and training partner of Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler. So yeah, I'm going Marina Shafir on that pretty easily.
That's a pretty safe assumption here. All right, so you talked about this a little bit earlier. You previewed this a bit, but our next match here is JR Kratos versus the returning Timothy Thatcher. It's Bloodsport, and Thatcher is back. Now that can go a few different ways. It depends really where your stance is on Timothy Thatcher. You kind of showed your hand a little bit earlier, but I take it you are not looking forward to Timothy Thatcher's return to the Bloodsport ranks.
Here's my question. does it go a couple different ways, or does it really only go one way? And that way kind of sucks.
Hey,
Like,
preach to the choir to me, man. I was there for, numerous Timothy Thatcher matches that just absolutely bombed in the arena and nobody cares. What I would say, what I would push against, though, is he was really good in NXT. Like, I love Timothy Thatcher in NXT. Has he harnessed that, or is he just going to be back to like, oh, hey, now I can grapple fuck again? Like, I tend to think he probably will now that he's in Bloodsport, because I think he thinks he's like a really, really solid, like, ground grappler and stuff, and he thinks he's like, playing chess when other people are playing checkers or whatever, but largely it's just kind of boring, not very good stuff from him. So I don't know. It could that's why I said it could go one and two. It could either go Timothy Thatcher like he was in NXT, where the bell would ring and he would just beat people up in 5 minutes, or the other way, which is long, drawn out, boring grapple fests.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess he did have that match with what was that called with Matt Riddle? The cage.
Why am I
thing?
blanking on it? I've been through my entire rant. I was trying to think of what it was called and trying to make my rant go. A fight pit. Fight pit. Was the name of it.
Yes, the
fight pit rocked. By the way,
Fight Pit was amazing. So yeah, okay, you're right. If he can bring Fight Pit Timothy Thatcher to this, which I feel like he's got to, because you've got J.R. Kratos, who no one wants to see J.R. Kratos go in there and just like calmly and methodically exchange holds. No, I want to see J.R. Kratos just clubber dudes, because he's a giant just ball of meat, and I want to see him just throw his meat hands at people's faces. And so if Timothy Thatcher can go in Fight Pit style and get in there and just chop each other, elbows, forearms, all that. All right, this could be good. You've convinced me that this has at least potential to be good, and so when it eventually is not good, I will only have you to blame for getting my hopes up.
Yeah, because while you think that, it's J.R. Kratos, he's big and he throws bombs or whatever, so of course Timothy's going to throw bombs, the match is totally going to be Timothy Thatcher like putting him on the ground, and they're going to be like, oh, you want to keep J.R. off his feet because he'll beat you in a striking game or whatever, you know what I mean? And just loosely applied, leg locks and stuff. Yeah,
I hate it so much, because everyone has seen real grappling now. Like, we see Khabib Nurmagomedov on Sports Center just like grabbing people and wrenching things, and you're like, God, that looks terrifying. And then you watch Timothy Thatcher and you're like, he looks like he's cuddling. Like,
right? Yeah, a loosely applied armbar.
Okay.
All right, so now the shoot fights of Thatcher and Kratos. This is an interesting one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe that Kratos has much in the way of shoot training.
But look at him.
I mean, that's true. I do think I would have to give Thatcher. Thatcher's got the lean muscle. He's going to keep distance. Depends on, where's this fight happening? Does Thatcher have enough room to move around? Is it in the fight pit? Because the fight pit, that's you got a lot of range there. I figure he's just going to find a way to get Kratos tired. You need a lot of oxygen to go to all those muscles, and so I go Thatcher by decision. It won't be fun to watch.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's of all the ones we've talked about shoot fight wise, this one would be like, why is this happening? Like, who booked this? Like, what in the world? Speaking of who booked this and why is this happening, Simon Grimm versus John Hennigan. Excuse me?
Woo! Get into it.
Excuse me? Is that Simon Grimm versus Johnny Nitro? Right? Am I reading that correctly?
You're not hallucinating. That is indeed what
John Morrison, booked. Johnny Nitro, Johnny insert whatever, Johnny Impact, Mundo, Johnny Mundo, same guy, all the same guy.
Yep. I will give you a dramatic reading of the entirety of my notes for this match leading into our discussion right now. Why, though?
Yeah, this is...
Grimm
is one of the worst parts.
Masterpiece Theater.
No, that is great. Incredible. Grimm is one of the worst parts of like the Josh Barnett's Bloodsports. I mean,
I always get my hopes up.
Yeah, he's just not that good. Like, he looks like I appreciate his effort. Like, that man, I know that he goes in every weekend thinking like, hell yeah, man, let's go. But like, it all kind of stinks. And I have no idea but I guess, and we've spoken about this in other previews. One of the fun parts about the first Bloodsport, about Matt Riddle's Bloodsport, was how unique and weird it was, and how guys were taken out of their comfort zone. And that was what was fun about it, was seeing guys that maybe shouldn't be in shoot fights, like in pseudo shoot fights or whatever. So maybe I should embrace that John Hennigan's in this, and embrace I don't know what's going to happen, but maybe it'll be fun. I guess I have to take that stance, I guess.
I guess, yeah. I mean,
but John Morrison, like Johnny Nitro.
Yeah, I wonder. Hopefully, there will be ring posts up, and he can try to do something stupid with the ring post. Just no ropes, just like try to like springboard off it or something. And I don't know. Who knows, man? I have absolutely no idea what this is gonna look like.
So I don't watch much MMA. Is parkour a frequent use in MMA cages? Is that a frequent? You have Taekwondo, you have Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Is parkour one of the trades, or no? That doesn't come up very often, right?
Well, I wouldn't say never. There is one guy who I can think of offhand that makes extensive use of the wildest, craziest flip stuff you've ever seen. His name's Michel Pereira. He's a Brazilian guy who does wacky dances, and then like he's done a shoot moonsault during an MMA fight. And so he's now like the answer to whenever some curmudgeon's like, well, none of this would work in a real fight. You wouldn't be backflipping on people. I'd be like, Michel Pereira does. Oh, yeah. Boom. What now, son?
This sounds awesome. I need to check this guy out. This sounds right up my alley.
You do.
Sure.
It's spelled like Pereira. Yeah. It's you can probably find on YouTube like a highlight package of him. Like I've seen him like jump off the cage, doing moonsaults, doing like front flips and crazy spin kicks. He's an absolute crazy person.
Well, hopefully Nitro's Johnny Blackcraft is watching those tapes then, so he's ready to go. Because
hopefully Johnny Bloodsport.
I'm very annoyed that he is not Johnny, but maybe he'll be Johnny Bloodsport when he shows up. But I imagine he said, "Hey, I'll be Johnny Bloodsport," and Josh Barnett was probably like, "Nah, that's fine. You can just be John Hennigan." So I take it Barnett isn't into the whole "my last name is the show" gimmick that Johnny likes to do. But I guess we'll see. We'll see when the show comes. The fun level of one Josh Barnett. But so as far as this match, shoot fight style, who's taking this one home? I guess you've convinced me that Johnny Nitro can do it. So,
yeah, here's the thing: does John Hennigan look like a man who has ever taken a legit punch to the face before?
He's too pretty for sure.
That's kind of where I'm at. Like he's only been hit on accident is kind of the vibe that I get from him. And so I got to go Simon Gotch because I feel like, again, whoever controls where the fight takes place usually controls the fight. And Hennigan's going to want the fight taking place in the rafters somewhere.
Yeah, gymnastics gym somewhere.
Gotch is just going to drag him to the bottom of the fight pit.
Right, a trampoline park or something, yeah. But this one I'm definitely looking forward to as well. I have this circled out as my list of ones to definitely get excited about. Josh Barnett versus Jonah, all caps Jonah, the former he was in NXT, obviously, as I'll get all the names here.
Bronson Reed.
Yeah, Bronson Reed. I've blanked on the name. Yeah, Jonah Rock, as many people probably know him. I forget. Yeah, Bronson Reed. This looks pretty sweet. Jonah, if you've never seen him, is just a big fucking mountain of a man. He's like 6 foot, 320 probably. He's just a huge man. And Josh Barnett's Josh Barnett. But I think I'm looking forward to this one. Should I be looking forward to it?
Yeah, I think so. I think it'll be interesting. Josh Barnett above anybody else should be able to help him along in a match like this and kind of figure out like, okay, what are you good at? Let's do that. I feel like every time I see Jonah, he does a ton of senton splashes. That's probably not happening, but hey, maybe it will. Who knows? Maybe he tries a senton and Barnett uses that to grab an armbar or something like that. Like, I will say this about Jonah though, and this is just a note to all pro wrestlers. If you're going to go through a gimmick change, maybe make that new name something that people can Google.
Yes,
I'm like, oh
yeah, because believe it or not, when you look up
Jonah,
on Google, the first thing that comes up is not the former Jonah Rock. Much to my chagrin, yeah. There's a few other things that pop up, and you're absolutely right, sir. And you of all people could say that, hey, there's a lot of other things are going to come up, like maybe a million other results are going to come up before your name comes up. So yeah, not great. Jonah, maybe just going back to being Jonah Rock, which if you look up Jonah Rock on Google,
hey, there you go.
Hey, there he is. So yeah, when you look up Jonah on Google, Bronson Reed does not appear. So yeah, probably a very very good recommendation there.
Not only have you just picked a common name, you've also picked a book of the Bible. So
right,
good luck.
Right. Which I've heard pretty popular. The Bible,
pretty popular,
read by quite a few people these days. So.
I'm going to start going by Matthew. Google me.
Right? Yeah. It didn't work out for Jesus of the Los Boricuas either. So yeah, learn from his mistakes, people. All right, did not work well for him at all. So. Anyway, Josh Barnett, Jonah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah.
Shoot fight wise, I mean, it's
the babyface assassin, the War Master, Jonah,
absolutely
beats Jonah all the way back to Melbourne.
Alex Coughlin versus Slade, also our second all caps guy here. Slade is also in all caps. This is Slade Rikers. He's been at a few different places. He's from the Creative Pro Academy, Kurt Hawkins, Pat Buck's group. But what do you think about Slade and Alex Coughlin? This is an interesting one here.
I think this has some good dumb jock wrestling potential. I think this could just be strong style, two dudes just slapping each other in the chest for 5 minutes straight, and I'm here for it. I'm all about that. I say let's go, let's do it. Hard strikes. Alex Coughlin's going to drop him on his head a few times. Slade doesn't exactly appear to be a guy that has a ton of regard for his own well-being. Man, let's go. I feel like this should be fun.
I think it could be fun too. Yeah, like you said, there's going to be matches that are going to be heavy on technique and heavy on that sort of stuff. I do hope that this is just like classic, 1994, like New Japan Strong Style type stuff where bell rings and guys just hit the hell out of each other for like 3 minutes, and then one guy is bloody and battered, and the other guy is laying in a pool of his own blood, and that's kind of end of it. So this has to be TKO. Like we cannot get a tap out here. This has to be end via TKO. It has to.
Yeah.
Shoot fight wise, where are you going here? I don't know any real background of either. I don't know that Slade has any sort of real fighting background, and I guess Coughlin's probably, he looks like he did some amateur wrestling in his days, but I don't know that to be true either. So
yeah, I mean Slade is billed as being from Rikers, which I feel like gives you an advantage.
Sure. Right.
Depending on the rule set we're operating under here. But I'm pretty sure Alex Coughlin's got some real training, and I have a feeling like if this were a shoot fight, again, he takes it down to the mat and makes it a long day for Mr. Slade.
At some point, Katsura Shibata has shot in the sky and told him to shoot back, right? Like, there's no doubt.
Oh, 100%.
Like, they were grappling, and then all of a sudden, he just told him, hit me, motherfucker, something like that. So then he said, hit him. So, there's no doubt in my mind that Coughlin would probably win this one here. Man, I have no idea this one. This your why though? I kind of have the similar thought about this. Ninja Mac versus Yoya. Ninja Mac versus Yoya. Ninja Mac in Bloodsport, man. I don't know what to think. I don't know what this is gonna be, but I think I'm here for it again. Like I'm embracing the wildness here of this year's Bloodsport.
Yeah, like you were, talking about with, Jonah and John Hennigan, like these guys that are coming in, kind of hearkening back to, hey, we're bringing in people, putting them in out of their element. I like Ninja Mac being here because it tells us we're all still having fun with this concept. Like it hasn't gotten too serious. And so, yeah, it's going to be interesting. My guess is that you're going to have just a lot of fast-paced striking exchanges. This is a match they're probably going to have rehearsed to some degree, I'm guessing, just, so they can go out there and boom, 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 land all of these exchanges. If we don't get a spot where they both kip up and pose each other down, I will be absolutely gobsmacked, because it just seems like that's sort of the thing we're going to get, and probably won't be long, but here for a good time, not a long time. That's what I think.
Absolutely, yeah. So now, when you go to Ninja Mac's cage match, now I'm a little dubious on the listings here. Background in sports for Ninja Mac, 32-year-old Ninja Mac. It says Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, gymnastics, mixed martial arts, Muay Thai, and Taekwondo. I've seen Ninja Mac wrestle a few. None of those have come through, right? Like, am I nuts? I apologize if this man does. Yeah, I apologize if this man has an extensive background in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai and Taekwondo. And all this, so I mean, I've watched him a bunch. I have never seen any of that come through in this wrestling. So, again,
okay, here's the one that makes me the most dubious that you left off. Ringen, Ringen, is listed on Cage Match for him as a mixed martial arts that he knows, and that's just like folk style wrestling, according to Wikipedia. It's like German folk style wrestling. Color me skeptical on Ninja Mac's German folk style wrestling experience. But it does.
I'm really excited. No, dude, I'm excited for the bell to ring and him just to technique the fuck out of Yo-Yo. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, he shows up, everyone thinks he's going to do a bunch of flips, and he just keeps on the mat and he just works your ass, you know?
He's just like, boom, bulldog choke, transition. Now he's got the front face lock. He's throwing knees. Yo-Yo doesn't know where it's coming from. He did used to go by the Capoeira Kid, though, previously. And as we all know, Capoeira, if you played any Tekken growing up, is by far the coolest martial art. And so he brings some of that in, a little Capoeira. Yo-Yo does a little Taekwondo silliness. And this could be fun.
Yeah, so maybe,
I'm looking forward to it.
Don't judge a book by its cover here. This could be an interesting one here.
And according to Cage Match here, Ninja Mac trained by Low Key, which means he may knock out Yo-Yo. So
right. Now that's who we need in a track jacket at ringside is Low Key. That's who we need, man. Oh my god, that'd be great. But shoot fight wise, I don't know where you're gonna go here. I guess with our newfound information about Ninja Mac, perhaps him, but are also newfound information that I'm not sure is actually true. That I don't know. Maybe a draw. I don't know if I have a good read on who would win a shoot fight between these two.
Well, I think it's whoever lands first. Let's say that. Let's give Ninja Mac a little bit of credit. Whoever lands first. I think Mac is a little bigger. Yo-Yo's a little faster. I guess, gun to my head, I go Ninja Mac in a shoot fight.
There it is. All right. Get on to another women's match here. Masa Slamovich, we've talked about before, versus Janai Kai, who has appeared on a lot of these blood sports as of late. This one, this could be good. It could also kind of be a styles clash, and I'm not sure where I'm at with this. Where do you stand on this Slamovich versus Kai match?
Yeah, I mean, for mixed martial arts, the style clash always works, where it's like, ooh, it's striker versus grappler, it's Chael Sonnen versus Anderson Silva, and that sort of contest is always sort of interesting. Can they make that interesting for this match? That's what we'll see. Now, hopefully they get some agenting help from Barnett on this, or from, heck, even Moxley is a total MMA nerd, and he may be able to throw some ideas at him, like, oh, I saw this one fight once where they did this, you guys should do that. And so I feel like it could be good. I was kind of down on Masha, and then I saw the Allison Kay match at last year's WrestleMania weekend and got even more down on Masha, because I was like, I'm just not seeing it, guys. And then she had that match at the last Bloodsport in October against Marina Shafir, which should have been terrible and was actually really good. And so I've kind of turned a little bit of a corner. I have optimism for Masha again. I feel like she's doing some better stuff, and she's projecting better. That was one of the things that really bugged me at first with her, was I saw her against Layla Hirsch, and Layla Hirsch looked like more of like a badass than Masha Slamovich did, and that just felt totally wrong, especially considering their size and everything. And now it's like that Marina Shafir match. It was like a whole new, it wasn't a new persona, but sort of a new reflection of that persona from Masha, is the way it felt to me. And so I'm looking forward to, hopefully we get more of that in this Bloodsport match. Janai Kai can do some fun stuff that it's like, it's high risk. If it works, if it looks good, it looks great. It could look really, really silly, but who knows? Well, that's the coin flip you kind of get there. I'm optimistic, though. I feel like this is going to be good. This is going to be an interesting match.
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic about it as well. Slamovich, I think over the last year has gotten pretty damn good, and even her like actual wrestling stuff has been a lot better. Like you said, she's projecting a little bit better. She's got obviously a new little more confidence, and rightfully so. She's in there with pretty top stars. She's one of the top women's wrestlers on the indies right now. So yeah, she's got that confidence, got that feel like, hey, I belong here, and I'm good. So that good for her to do that. And yeah, I think the last Bloodsport match that you mentioned was really, really good. And Janai Kai, like you said, it either lands or it just doesn't land at all. Like sometimes she does a bunch of weird spinny kicks and they're like nowhere near the other person, and the person's got to sell it, or she falls down, or it looks silly, or she's doing all that stuff and it looks awesome. Like it could go one of two ways. I think with Slamovich, it might be a good styles clash in the sense that like Kai might be trying to do her kind of, some of these, flying kicks and back fists and all this sort of stuff. And then Slamovich can kind of either tackle her, throw her down, grab the arm, do that sort of stuff. So I think that will actually work. It doesn't work very well when Kai's in there with somebody else who's also trying to do kind of intricate strikes. But when you have somebody who's probably just going to try to take it to the ground and try to tackle and just out-strengthen somebody, that might be, like you said, a good styles clash, one that really does work. So yeah, I'm looking forward to checking that one out. Shoot fight-wise, where do we have with both of these?
I mean, the shoot fight, it's tricky because I don't know as though Masha has any experience beyond pro wrestling, whereas Janai Kai does. She has the Taekwondo background, but Masha is so much bigger than her, which is one of the things that I think will help the match, too, is because not only do you have the striker grappler, you also have a David Goliath story to tell with the match. So that kind of gives you another way to go. So, yeah, it's like, can Janai Kai put enough into her strikes to take down Slamovich? I don't think so, because you very, very rarely see women around that size have that kind of stopping power. Although I don't know if you saw the replay that was going around. It was all over Twitter and stuff from this past weekend of Meatball Molly McCann in the UFC.
I don't think I have. Yeah, I don't think I have.
It's worth finding the GIF or whatever of Meatball Molly hits this spinning back elbow on this girl at UFC London last weekend, and looked like she killed her. Like, it's the craziest thing you've ever seen in your life. But I say that to say it's the very rare exception that you see something like that land at a lower weight class with the women. And so for that reason, I feel like Masha would be able to take her down and probably beat her up, or at the very least go to a decision that, she wins just because she was on top.
And then two more matches to go here. Two of the big boys here on Bloodsport. So it's kind of interesting that Barnett, I think, has probably booked this where he is kind of, I mean, the match with Jonah is a big time match or whatever, but he's clearly understanding that these other guys are a much, much bigger deal at this point. And I appreciate that, not always booking himself in the top match, which again, I mean, it bears his name. He is Josh Barnett. I wouldn't hate it if he always put himself in like these top spots, but I do think with these two bookings, it's a really cool way to go about this show. Because the first one we're going to talk about here, Jon Moxley versus the returning Biff Busick. Biff Busick returning to the Indies after years as Oney Lorcan, years in WWE, years in NXT. Jon Moxley versus Biff Busick. I mean, man, it's not a shoot fight wise. Who the fuck knows? God only knows what would happen here. But Bloodsport wise, this is going to fucking rock, and there's no doubt in my mind this is going to rock.
Yeah, if I told you at the end of the weekend that was the best match that happened all weekend, I don't think you'd be that surprised.
No, not at all.
this should rule. This will be the best match Moxley has that weekend. I know he's got at least one other, if not two others lined up for GCW and whoever. But yeah, this is going to be awesome. Like, and this is the thing, and I feel like I may have talked about this last time, but I love the way that Jon Moxley does shoot style grappling and stuff like that. And even not necessarily shoot style, but just his normal grappling in AEW or wherever, is that like it's just so aggressive and so raw, and he just wrenches on people and he grabs real holds. I listened to Renee Paquette's podcast with it's her radio show with Misha Tate from the UFC. They do a show together on Sirius XM. They release it as a podcast. And there was an episode immediately after Revolution that it was the first AEW pay-per-view that Misha Tate had seen. And previous, like, so for the show, like, they're covering MMA and they're covering, pro wrestling and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And so she had been to SummerSlam in Vegas. That's where she lives. And so the show's there. So she went, sort of as an experience for the radio show to talk about it. She watched the pay-per-view for Revolution, saw the Bryan Danielson, Jon Moxley match, and was like, now that's what I'm talking about. Like, that I can get into, because everything they did looked real. Like, you can't do what they did without knowing stuff. Like, she was so complimentary of it. And I felt so justified, in my opinion, of caping for Jon Moxley's technical wrestling for so long. Because here is, one of the best female grapplers of all time in MMA, going like, yeah, like those guys, both of them went out there and knew exactly what they were doing, and everything looked great and intense and it looked brutal. I don't know how they do that and not just totally destroy themselves and yada yada. I'm like, yes, that's exactly it. Like, Jon Moxley goes out there, his stuff looks real, it looks good. If you're an actual MMA head, you can watch a Jon Moxley match and you're like, yep, that looks good, those holds look real. My wife, same experience. She's a big UFC fan, not as much pro wrestling. She watches Jon Moxley, she watches Bryan Danielson, and she's like, yes, that looks real. I can believe that. I can't believe some of this other stuff.
Right.
And so for that, and then Biff Busick is another guy that in that vein.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like you could almost describe Biff Busick with the exact same ways. It's like every one of his holds, like as even just the most basic grapple, feels like it would hurt. Like he's rubbing on your ear, he's rubbing on your temples, he's rubbing your traps. Like everything is just kind of he's kind of wrenching everything in a little bit more and a little bit more, a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy trained by Lance Storm. And so, he's technically sound as far as the pro wrestling goes, but then on top of that is able to work in, obviously, whether, I don't know if he has an official background or anything, but this is a guy that's obviously rolling on a jiu-jitsu mat somewhere during the week. Like, this is a guy who's a combat sports athlete. You can tell just by the way he throws his strikes, the way he does his grappling. You put these two together, and what I think this may be the main event. Maybe it won't be. Maybe the next match will be. Who knows? But this match is going to be fire. It should be the main event if it's not, because I don't think that anybody's going to be able to follow this one on this show. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I would like this one to be the main event. I think it works with Moxley in there. But obviously, when you get to the main event, which we'll do that in a moment. But shoot fight, Biff Busick versus Jon Moxley. This is pretty evenly matched here.
I mean, like, Busick more of like an indie-sized guy. Moxley is more of like a, WWE-sized guy. But I could be wrong.
I think you're right. Busick is listed at 6'1", and Moxley's listed at 6'2", so maybe Moxley feels taller than 6'2", though. I don't know. Maybe it's because he's there on the indies. I guess we'll have to see when they're next to each other. But Biff does feel like he's like 5'8" usually when I see him. But maybe that's him with other taller guys. And Moxley, because the same thing with Moxley. When Moxley was in WWE, you're like, he's a normal sized guy. And then he goes on the indies. You're like, that guy's huge. Like, Jesus Christ,
right,
look how big he is.
So it'll be interesting. So yeah, that would factor in. But if the stats say they're relatively similar, as Mike Goldberg once said for the UFC, virtually identical, then I guess I go Moxley because he's just crazier.
Yeah, it feels like you'd have to literally kill that man to like if it was a shoot fight, like he would have to literally die. Like even you could knock him out and he'd probably still go fighting. You know what I mean? Like I don't think he would stop.
Oh, yeah.
Like he has no brain to actually stop to just say no, the fight's over, man. Like you would literally need a referee to like jump in the midst of him punching a guy and say no, you're done. You can't keep punching this guy because he would just never die. He would just never ever die. That's just Moxley's personality there. And then the final match here that we'll talk about, maybe the main event, like you said. I think Moxley and Busick I would probably put as the main event, but when you're bringing this guy to town, I get why you would maybe want to put him in the main event. It's Manora Suzuki versus Chris Dickinson. Dickinson obviously returning from a long time away with an injury, about 6 to 8 months. I forget exactly when that happened. Maybe closer to 6 months for him. But he is going to be facing Manora Suzuki here. Suzuki, obviously a veteran of Bloodsport in one of the better Bloodsport matches ever, if not the best Bloodsport match ever, against Josh Barnett a couple years ago. But Manora Suzuki, Chris Dickinson, what are your thoughts on this, Jeremy?
Yeah, I mean this is also a rematch from October that they had at Bloodsport 7. And that was the main event of that show. Suzuki won it by submission. And so here we go again, but this is exactly the kind of thing the Bloodsport should be. Like Manora Suzuki basically has two kinds of matches now. He has comedy matches, and then he has these matches where he goes out and just trades strikes and submission holds. And I'm honestly here for both. If we're just cards on the table, but most definitely for the strike heavy, attack heavy, sort of shoot, strong style that Suzuki brings and does so well. And so, yeah, their last match was good. This match should be good as long as they keep the pace up. It'll be interesting to see, as he said, with Dickinson coming off the injury, like, is he ready to go? Can Suzuki still go? Because, he's obviously sort of waning here. But if they both show up, they both got their working shoes on, and they both go out there. And I think it would actually help the match if it's not the main event, because maybe then it can be a little shorter and you can just really get, the best of the best of what these guys are going to do, get it all in there. I think this should, again, be another, at minimum, pretty darn good match.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to this one in the same respect for that. Yeah, it's Manora Suzuki, it's Bloodsport, so that's good. It's Chris Dickinson, it's Bloodsport, that's good. It's Manora Suzuki and Chris Dickinson in Bloodsport, we know that's good as well. And there's also the added intrigue of, okay, what health level does Dickinson have? The good thing is, that like if this guy if he is healthy, he is like Moxley where he's going to go full bore. Like there's no doubt in my mind that if he feels like he's good to go and his body's good to go, that he's good to go and he's going to just go in there and bust his ass. So you have that. And like you said, Manora Suzuki's going to be booked on a bunch of other shows this weekend. He's booked on a bunch of other indies all over the, he's not unique really anymore. I mean, people have seen Manora Suzuki live a bunch of times over the last couple of years. And a lot of those, like you said, he comes out, he's an entrance, and then it's, he just kind of messes around, makes funny faces, does that sort of stuff. He has not done that on Bloodsport yet, and I don't think he's going to do that on Bloodsport, and I'm sure Josh Barnett's not going to let him do it on Bloodsport. I don't think Suzuki wants to do it on Bloodsport either. So it is kind of in a way that while Manora Suzuki isn't unique anymore, this Manora Suzuki is unique. The Manora Suzuki who comes in, no nonsense, no bullshit, bell rings and he's going to kick ass. Like that Manora Suzuki we don't get as often anymore. So I'm looking forward to seeing that here. So whether it be the main event, whether it be somewhere in the show, I think this match should deliver big. And this entire show really is, I think, one of the standout shows of WrestleMania weekend. I mean, just off the top of my head, Suzuki and Dickinson sounds great. Moxley and Busick sounds great. Coughlin and Slade sounds great. Barnett and Jonah I'm into. Bailey and Yu Uemura I'm into, and those are just ones that I really, and then like a bunch of the other stuff in between there I think all has the chance to be really, really good, other than like Bad Dude Tito and Royce Isaacs, and then I guess Simon Grimm versus John Hennigan. I'm not like super into that one, but most other ones at least I have a perverse interest in every match, and then the ones that I do like I think are going to be pretty damn awesome. So Bloodsport again might be one of the shows of WrestleMania weekend, just because it's like it knows what it wants to do, it does what it's supposed to do, and it just unequivocally is Bloodsport. You know what I mean? It is, you know what you're going to get. There's no surprises. There's no disappointment. It's Bloodsport. And I'll give, all the credit in the world to GCW and Josh Barnett for just saying, hey, go do it and trusting that, this show is going to be what it's going to be and letting it remain what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. It, we're not gonna, who knows how many more of these we're gonna get, and especially with like the Suzuki, how many more of these kind of Suzuki matches are we really going to see? Who knows? And so appreciate this one, appreciate it while it's here, because Bloodsport is it's different, it's special, and I'm always excited for it. Oh, and we've got to Suzuki versus Dickinson.
Oh, yes.
If it were real. Now,
I think I have an answer, but I don't know. Maybe you're going to surprise me here.
Here's the thing, is that Manora Suzuki is getting very, very old.
Yes.
And there will come a day when his age and his shop-wornness catches up to him, and he is no longer able to take down these young whippersnappers on the field of combat. However, next Thursday would not be that day.
Yeah.
I take Manora Suzuki.
Still got that old man strength. He's not that old yet. He feels like a guy that could still stretch you even into his like 70s or whatever. But it's gonna come, like you said. It will come at some point. But yeah, I still think Manora's got that win there. Dickinson try like hell. Dickinson will try like hell, out strengthen him, maybe slam him a few times. But I think when push comes to shove, it will be Manora Suzuki that gets the win. So there we go. That is again on the 31st. It is airing on Fight TV as well. voicesofwrestling.com/fight, or you can go to the WrestleMania Weekend page at Voices of Wrestling, where we have links there if you want to order Josh Barnett's Bloodsport on Fight. It's also part of the collective package as well, so if you want to just buy every collective show all at once, you can do that as well at voicesofwrestling.com/fight. So Jeremy, you want to get any plugs out of the way before we bid adieu?
Just on Twitter, it's at Jeremy Sexton. If I do anything else cool, I'll just post it on there. And so consider it your little RSS feed of fun tidbits about me.
There it is. Oh, and I real quickly, because I'm asking everybody about this, what else are you looking forward to this Mania Weekend? Is there a few things that you have circled that you're saying, hey, I'm definitely going to check that out this Mania Weekend? Or like you said, are you going to watch Bloodsport and then let everybody else figure out, everybody else sift through the rubble and find the gems in what could be a disastrous weekend potentially?
There's a couple others. I'm definitely checking out this Mark Hitchcock show now. I mean, you're telling me I'm getting the Briscoes versus Homicide and Low Key? I don't care if it's 2022. I am in.
Yeah.
Bandito versus Mike Bailey. That show looks good.
It does. Yeah,
I'm sold. On the same show, you're going to have Atsushi Onita, Robert Gibson, and Ricky Morton. I mean,
what do those guys talk about? Yeah, at some point
they're in a triple threat match.
Yes, at some point those three men will be in the room together, shake hands and say something to each other, and I want to be there to see what that is and what they talk about. Yeah,
in that room. But yeah, I mean, you got that. That's interesting. Always the whatchamacallit, the spring break. I'll check out Spring Break because it's spring break and it's usually an entertaining show, even if none of the matches are really, really doing it for. Actually, I haven't actually looked at the cards here, but just a quick scan. Yeah, I mean, the spring break shows, they look like spring break shows. They should be all right. Suzuki versus Effie. I'm curious to see what that's going to be. Who knows what that'll be. There's the Gringo Loco World on Lucha show. It's funny because on one hand, I'm like, that kind of looks interesting, but like AAA is bringing a show that looks better. There's like 2 or 3 other better looking lucha shows that are happening. So
it's a weekend of lucha for sure. There's a lot of good lucha stuff.
That's what I'm like upset. Like if I was going to go to anything, it would be like every lucha show,
right?
If I was headed down there, just because, I mean, when else are you going to get a chance to see a AAA show, for example?
Especially in Texas too, which I think would be a cool atmosphere for a lucha show. And like, I kind of have that in Chicago as well. Anytime I've gone to a lucha show in Chicago, it's a blast because it's like, very heavy Mexican population that all goes, and it's a completely different wrestling crowd than what you get on like an AAW show or a freelance wrestling show or whatever.
Yep.
And I would hope that you got the same vibe in Texas for a lucha show that, like, yeah, the crowd that goes to a GCW show, that's going to be the same crowd every single weekend. The whole weekend it's going to be the same, 100 or so people that are going to be there for every single show. I would like to believe that the lucha shows are going to be a weird blend of, like, people that don't know that any other shows are going on but are just going to the lucha show and are going to bring their vuvuzelas and their noisemakers and all that sort of stuff, as well as your wrestling fans that are like, fuck it, I'll go to the Martinez Promotions, lucha show. And that could make for a really, really fun atmosphere. So I'm right with you. If I was going down, like, all those lucha shows are definitely highlighted and top of mind that I have to go to every single one of those. Even right down to the Gringo Loco one, I think would be pretty fun too.
Oh yeah, totally.
So you can follow him on Twitter at Jeremy Sexton. Jeremy, thank you so much for coming here and helping us preview Bloodsport.
Absolutely, thank you.
All right, and continuing our discussion and our previews of WrestleMania Weekend, it is Joey O'Doherty. You can follow him on Twitter at AwesomeOJoe. Joey, thank you for joining us.
No, pleasure to have myself here, and honestly, getting stuck into WrestleMania Weekend after such a long sabbatical from wrestling is just what I needed.
Yes, yeah, WrestleMania Weekend. You're so I guess we'll talk about your temperature on this year's WrestleMania Weekend and how excited or not excited or whatever you may be. But before we do that, I did want to let you take a chance to plug, because you got something new out that's very exciting, very fun, very interesting. It's getting a lot of love. It's getting great reviews, and I just wanted to give you a chance to plug that away. So talk about the Mox podcast.
You are full of shit, Rich. It's not getting great reviews. And I joking. It's cool. But yeah, listen, I'm no John Moxley super fan. I'm just a guy who just finds the guy fascinating, and I want to give a sort of a honest and true reflection of a career of a fascinating guy. And it was something to do, something to get myself back in. So at Mox Podcast is where you can find Wild Thing. And yeah, it's fascinating just going back and watching all wrestling. It's a good excuse to get stuck into some stuff maybe I haven't seen before.
Absolutely, yeah, some great stuff. So at Mox Podcast, you can go there. It's a pretty cool series where you're talking to a different person about a different Moxley match, the story that goes into the match, the story around the match itself. So it's really cool because, yeah, the guy's got an absolutely fascinating career, and there's like so many different like facets of his career. Like the John Moxley from the American Indies in the early 2000s is like entirely different than Dean Ambrose. You know what I mean? There's like a connective tissue in that guy, like caring about everything that he does. Like he supremely cares about all he does, but those guys can't be any different. Like the Mox today is so much different than Dean Ambrose, and it's like, but at the end of the day, they all kind of are the same because they're all connected by this maniac of a hard worker, John Moxley, who makes sure that anything that he truly, truly cares about, he goes 110% with. So yeah, it'll be fascinating to watch as that series goes on.
No, I appreciate it. Like I look at like Moxley from when his early indie days, like he was finally putting the pieces together, got himself, really found what his strengths were and worked with them. And then by the time he got to there, he moved on to FCW and started to relearn how to really work and how to get stuck into WWE's way of sort of, presenting themselves to the camera and the way they like to, really tear people down and build them back up again, for lack of a better word. And then obviously there's the New Japan and Game Changer Wrestling Mox, which is completely different from anything we saw previously in the 6 years in WWE. And it's fascinating. I could watch this guy all day. He's passionate, he's authentic, and yeah, some pretty good wrestling in there too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think one of the things I love about him is that, yeah, he's clearly like a cream rise to the top guy. Like everything that he does, no matter what system he's in, he does it the best he can do. You put him in Bloodsport, he's like one of the best Bloodsport guys. You put him in GCW, he's one of the best GCW guys. He goes to the G1 and he's like the star of a G1. It's like he's not that good, he's not that good of a wrestler as like all those other guys, but it doesn't matter because like good wrestling is subjective, and it's all about what you do when you're in there. So no, bell to bell, he's not like anywhere near an Okada or a Tanahashi or whatever, but it doesn't matter because it's John Moxley, so he fucking rocks. So yeah, that's gonna be a great series to follow as it goes. Again, at Mox Podcast for that in the future. But let's talk about WrestleMania Weekend here a little bit, Joey, and we'll start with your temperature on WrestleMania Weekend. Are you feeling this WrestleMania Weekend? Are you excited? Are you cautiously optimistic? Where are you at right now with this year's WrestleMania Weekend?
Well, full disclosure, it's been obviously I'd say about 6, maybe 7 months since I've really got back into pro wrestling after really falling out of love with it. And that's just down to really time constraints and not really feeling everything probably around 2017, 2018. But getting stuck back into things thanks to AEW draw me back in. And I made a New Year's resolution to try and get myself into as much indie wrestling as possible, starting off with like a Game Changer Wrestling in January to Hammerstein, and going from there, watching things like, like Rev Pro with Michael Oku and Will Ospreay. And it's just like, there's so much good stuff out there. And WrestleMania Weekend is really where a lot of the best talent that's not signed converges. And has a bit of fun and shows you something that like maybe you haven't seen before.
Absolutely, yeah. It should be
I'm hyped.
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely. And if you're kind of new to the game in that sense, or you haven't really watched it for a while, I mean, this is a great weekend to kind of sample some stuff. There's probably dozens upon dozens of people that you've never seen before, so that'll be interesting to check out. But let's talk about the shows that you specifically wanted to preview. We'll start with what I believe is actually kicking off the entire weekend itself, and that's Glory Pro Wrestling's Cemetery Gates, which is probably the best show name of the entire weekend. Cemetery Gates is quite the way to start this weekend off. Thursday, March 31st, 11 a.m. at the Fair Park in Dallas, Texas. So a bit of a tough time for people coming in to Texas, unless, maybe they're there on a Wednesday and they're there the night before and ready to go. But this is always a tough time slot for people. This Thursday at 11 a.m. I mean, that's just a rough spot, but it's a hell of a show. It's available on Fight. It's also part of the Collective Fight bundle as well over at voicesofwrestling.com/fight. But the matches announced so far as of this recording: Matt Fitchett and Davey Vega versus the No Remorse Corpse of Davey Richards and Rocky Romero Corps of Davey Richards and Rocky Romero. Jake Something versus Max the Impaler. Warhorse versus Josh Alexander. Tootie Lynn versus Janai Kai. Mike Outlaw versus Brian Keith. Myron Reed, Carlos Romo, Shane Saber, Danny Jones in a four-way match, and then Technical Difficulties versus Fly Def versus Alpha Omega, and Hart versus Hart. Hustle and Muscle. So, Joey, what kind of jumps off of the page for you? Why this show did you kind of pick to say, hey, this is one that I really want to talk about?
I just randomly picked them. Like, I looked at a lot of the guys that were obviously taking shows, and I said to myself, I'm going to take something that maybe just no one else really wants to take. There's something that may be different, or something that things aren't announced for just yet. And whatever was going to be on them, I was going to do a little bit of homework at least to see who these guys were that I weren't familiar with. Like, and that was really the fun part of probably doing this, was to sort of have a look at about 3 or 4 matches of each guy. Maybe that was going to be on this, and sort of see what I was going to be interested in and whatnot. And to be honest with you, I think I lucked out with this show.
You did. Good. Yeah, that's a great show. I mean, this is honestly one that I definitely have circled as one to make sure that I'm able to watch at least a little bit of. And Glory Pro, they're based obviously in the St. Louis area. They run a lot in Illinois due to some commission stuff going on in Missouri, but essentially they are a St. Louis based promotion. But I think they did a really good job here of kind of blending what they normally do with also grabbing some people that are going to be there that weekend and people that they can kind of showcase that they might not normally showcase. So you're left with what I think is a pretty damn good card. I mean, Jake Something versus Max the Impaler, Warhorse versus Josh Alexander. I don't know if that's exactly the matches I would choose for both guys, but I think it's pretty interesting, especially for Something and Max the Impaler, and Warhorse versus Josh Alexander. I mean, Josh Alexander is one of the best in the world, so it'll be interesting to see what Warhorse can do with him. Brian Keith, I don't know how much of Brian Keith you've seen, Joey, but he is probably, I have not counted it up yet, but I think he probably has the most bookings of anybody this entire weekend. And I'm fine with that, because there's been past years where guys that have gotten the most bookings and you're like, oh man, that's not the best person. But Brian Keith rules. And he's like a Texas indie guy who's really, really doing some great stuff. So I am very interested to see what he does here against Mike Outlaw. Have you checked out any Brian Keith yet? Or are you aware of the name, or have you done in your research, where has he come up?
Well, if I have, he reminds me, at least aesthetically, like nearly like an alternate version of John Moxley in a way. So that's a nice little transition, I suppose. There, he's a very good striker. He looks authentic. He looks believable. And I've seen a couple of his matches here. I've actually watched 1 or 2 of them today. And he looks like some guy that definitely I could get myself behind.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's always this, who's going to be the star of the weekend, who's going to be the breakout star of the weekend. It'll be a great weekend if Brian Keith is the breakout star, because I think this is a good opportunity for him to maybe start, people that have only been watching Texas Indies or and he's bounced a few different places. He hasn't just been in Texas, but he's been primarily a Texas person. So for people that maybe have not seen a bunch of his stuff, this could be a really, really great weekend for him. And he's facing a lot of really fun opponents and a bunch of different shows. So yeah, and this one, he's front and center on the poster as well. So they're clearly, making it known that he's a guy to be aware of. As far as like what I presume would be the main event here, this is a very interesting match of a throwback team that maybe, Joey, when you were watching independent wrestling more regularly, you saw the Davey Richards, Rocky Romero team in Ring of Honor. They're back reunited here against a team that is, they've been around for a while, so they maybe were when you were still watching the Indies, but they've kind of grown over the years and gotten a little bit better. Matt Fitchett in particular, but he's going to be teaming with Davey Vega, a classic team between these two guys. But Matt Fitchett has really, in the last few years, just grown on people and really become like a top indie guy. And this match, I mean, this is one of my most anticipated matches of the entire weekend. I mean, this should absolutely rock.
Yeah, again, the time, it's 11 a.m., so this probably could be around 1 o'clock when this one really starts to go ahead. But Yeah, Davey Richards, Rocky Romero, like, it's hopefully will be everything that's said on the tin here. Yeah, you're going to get these two guys don't really do average matches really at this stage, and hopefully they don't phone it in. But yeah, it's on paper, this looks like one to at least get your teeth stuck into.
Is there anything else on this show that kind of stands out to you, or ones that you definitely think, maybe we didn't mention here, we didn't give any extra credence to, that you think maybe has some potential to be great?
Well, like Jayani Kai, I can never pronounce her name.
Janai Kai.
Janai Kai. Yeah. Like I first saw her at Terminus, I think back in January, the show with John Gresham and Baron Black, and like she's definitely someone that, first of all, physically speaking, she stands out. She has a unique look, and she seems to be a pretty good striker. Again, similar in the way of, like I just mentioned, Brian Keith. Like she's someone that interests me. I want to see more. I haven't seen enough of her, but like she's definitely seems to someone with a lot of potential and has a nice bright future ahead of herself.
Yeah, it definitely. So that is Glory Pro Cemetery Gates, again, 11 a.m. From the Fair Park in Dallas, Texas, part of the collective GCW crew of shows. So if you're plopping down there for the whole weekend, this is going to start you off. If you're coming into Dallas for the weekend, this can start you off too, and you can bounce a bunch of different places. And if you're just going to sit on your couch or in some chair and watch it, I mean, you can watch it too. It's going to be streaming live on Fight, also part of the collective bundle as well over at Voices of Wrestling. .com/fight. So let us now move to Friday, April 1st, and you've picked all the early shows. You are now, obviously, time zones. You can probably tell from listening to your voice that you are not from Texas. I think that's a safe assumption to make.
Just fun.
Yeah. So I was going to say these times
really well for me.
Yeah. What 11 a.m. Excuse my ignorance on time zones. Like, what time are these shows on? I mean, these are right in your wheelhouse for being able to watch live, right?
I'd say that these should be on roughly around 8 o'clock at night, I think, by looks of things. So like that's perfect. Maybe even 7 o'clock, I think, in some cases. And like I get home from work, throw them on, I'll have them on Fight, and yeah, listen, I've committed myself to watching them, I've committed myself to reviewing them. So yeah, might as well watch something that I'm not staying up at 4 o'clock in the morning for.
Yeah, certainly. That's great for you. But yeah, Friday, April 1st. Kicking the action off on Friday is also from the Fair Park, part of the collective here. It's JCW versus LA Fights. So kind of two offshoot promotions of GCW here, with LA Fights being one of their newest ones, and then JCW, them kind of purchasing the name of JCW, purchasing the old promotion and kind of working it under their system as well. So these are GCW affiliated, but they do kind of feel like pretty interesting cards in that sense as well. So 11 a.m. Fair Park, also available on the collective bundle, or available at Fight, voiceswrestling.com/fight. You have B-Boy versus Grimm Reefer. B-Boy versus Grimm
Reefer.
He's
getting fucked up early in the morning.
Hell yes, baby. Juicy Finau versus Big Vin. Dark Sheik versus Charles Mason. Cole Radrick versus Kevin Blackwood. Billy Starks versus Sandra Moore. Nick Wayne versus Marcus Mathers. And Jack Cartwheel versus Alec Price. So, Joey, what matches on the show kind of have you excited, or are you intrigued by on JCW versus Fights?
There's definitely two guys that like I've seen a good bit on the last 48 hours, and probably at least in probably Nick Wayne's case, probably the last month or two. This guy is the hottest thing nearly in the Indies at this stage. He's had such a good year in 2021. He's continuing it this year. He's a guy I want to see more of. He just seems so enthusiastic. He seems so he's so fresh, and like this is a guy you just want to keep on watching all day. He's so good for his age. It's hard to believe he's so young.
Yeah, and we mentioned Brian Keith a little bit earlier. I mean, there's a possibility that Nick Wayne, not that he necessarily needs it. I don't know if he needs it or whatnot, but him emerging from the weekend as like the star of the weekend too. I mean, he's already got a standing AEW contract whenever he's of age or whatever. So I don't know if he can truly break out in that same way. But I mean, this could be a huge opportunity for people that have never seen Nick Wayne before. That have heard the hype, have heard the name, to now see him in action and go, holy crap, this guy's like 16 or 17 years old and he's this good. And this entire show is kind of a very interesting blend of super, super young wrestlers in terms of people like Billy Starks and people like Nick Wayne. Marcus Mathers, I don't think is that old. I think 19 or 20, if I remember correctly. And then some older names too, when you got like people like Grimm Reefer in there hanging out and stuff. It's an interesting card. Big Vin as well, a little bit older. But there's some stuff to like on this show. It's a very interesting one. It's tough to say because it's like GCW, and sometimes their stuff doesn't always land the same way you would think they would. But there's a few. I mean, Jack Cartwheel and Alec Price, that sounds really, really good. If you've watched those two guys, those two are some of the better guys on the indies right now. Nick Wayne and Marcus Mathers, I like Marcus Mathers a lot, so I think that could be really good. And good. Yeah, and B-Boy versus Grimm Reefer. I mean, come on, it's B-Boy versus Grimm Reefer. There's got to be some sort of intrigue in seeing whatever the hell that's going to be. So
especially at 11 a.m. Like if Grim Reaper wants to spark up at that early in the morning, good for him, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Wake and
weekend.
bake, baby. Let's go.
He is like Marcus Manners is definitely some guy I've watched over the last few days. Like, I've seen a few bouts with Anthony Green and Speedball, and even one with Too Cold Scorpio, who's still going. Which we'll get back to later, but he's a guy who interests me. Him and Nick Wayne, they're both young. They'll probably, hopefully they get enough time to shine here, like at this early bout, maybe. But it looks like on paper this is going to be a really fun game.
Absolutely, yeah. It looks like definitely a fun show to kick off the Friday festivities. If you look for it, every day has a call for celebration. Celebrate a friend for their promotion, baby, wedding, life thing. Celebrate yourself for keeping the couch warm. It's no easy feat, especially if it's a big couch. Or maybe you just want to celebrate living in 2022, where you can get beer, wine, and spirits delivered from Drizzly in under 60 minutes without leaving said couch. Right now, Drizzly is giving all new customers $5 off their first order with code FAST5. So download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com, that's DRIZLY.com, and use the promo code FAST5 for $5 off your first order. Drizzly is the most convenient way to buy beer, wine, and spirits with delivery to your doorstep in under 60 minutes. Drizzly is the #1 app for alcohol delivery because the convenience of home delivery in under 60 minutes. You get it when you need it, and you can conveniently shop across stores so you can choose from a huge selection of alcohol, wine, spirits, beer, anything you possibly need. Get exactly what you want when you want, and you can also shop across multiple stores to compare prices and find the best deals for what you're looking for. So again, new users to Drizzly are getting, all new customers, every new customer, if you're a brand new customer, you're going to get this no matter what, $5 off your first order with the code FAST5. So you download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com, that's DRIZLY.com, and use the promo code FAST5 for $5 off your very first order. Drizzly, the #1 app for alcohol delivery. Again, download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com, DRIZLY.com.
At Wendy's, March is madness. With our breakfast Baconator. Sausage, egg, and Swiss croissant. Both made with fresh cracked eggs or even a honey butter chicken biscuit. And we're just getting warmed up. Get 50% off the official breakfast of March Madness when you order through the Wendy's app. Choose wisely. Choose Wendy's.
For a limited time at participating Wendy's via app offer only. Account registration required. No discount applies to taxes or fees. Not valid with any other offer.
And then we'll go to later on Friday. It's at 3 p.m. this year for the culture. One of the cooler shows on every WrestleMania weekend and any kind of wrestling showcase weekend. It has in the past been sort of buried in very weird time slots. And I know you haven't followed the past few WrestleMania weekends, but when they first did it, it was like on, I don't know, it was at 1 a.m. or something on like a Thursday. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, who's going to watch this thing? Like, and it was like, decently attended, but still kind of tough. Like, no normal person was going to be able to check the show out at any time. And then last year was kind of the same thing. It was, I forget what time it was, but it was like not a great time. And it was just like, oh man, like the show that really should be getting more spotlight is in like the worst possible time slot. But thankfully on this night, or this day, 3 p.m. on a Friday is not bad. Yes, it's in the afternoon on a weekday, but it's WrestleMania weekend. 3 p.m. is not bad for that. People are either taking off on Friday. Most people are already there for the weekend. And your astute kind of WrestleMania weekend watchers, they're already all in on Friday. So this is a great time slot for the culture. 3 p.m. Also from the Fair Park, Dallas, Texas, part of the Collective, available on the Collective bundle, voicewrestling.com/fight. But yeah, the card looks pretty awesome. I'll say this: the For the Cultures prior, I think, had a little bit better cards, but I do think that there's some stuff that I still like about this card. I've seen some people down on it, but I think I'm a little bit more into it than some other people. AJ Gray versus Darius Lockhart, Hoodfoot versus Billy Dixon, the aforementioned Too Cold Scorpio versus Brian Keith, the Hitmakers with a Z versus Shane Taylor Promotions, Impact Knockouts World Championship, Tasha Steelz versus Big Swole, Rich Swann versus JTG, and Trish Adora versus MJ Jenkins. So, Joey, what kind of stands out to you about this show, or what do you know about For the Culture? First off, since you haven't kind of been around for the last few WrestleMania weekends.
Well, I've had a look. Obviously, I've done my homework. I've gone back and watched a few key matches from the previous two shows, especially the ones last year. Like again, you can see there's like obviously some good matches, but Lee Moriarty and ACH, AR Fox and Too Cold Scorpio had a few good matches.
Oh, dude, that AR Fox match was so good. Too Cold Scorpio AR Fox, I love that match so much.
How is Too Cold Scorpio in this stage? Like I'm 37. Like I'm not exactly an unfit guy, and I can barely stand up some days when I do a little bit of running. Too Cold Scorpio, the age on me, still is so nimble for his age.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, it's just so good. Fair play to the guy. Like, and like, it's more of a curious card than one I'd be really excited for. Like, there is potential there, but I was looking forward to probably what I at the time would have been the Hitmakers, or formerly Hit Row, their first match back, and same with Big Swole, their first match back. But they've both had matches now since this card was announced. I'm like, I would have been a bit more newsworthy at one stage, but sure, here we are.
No, absolutely, yeah, and so yeah, I have seen people kind of down on this card, thinking it's not as good as prior years, but I do think that there's, AJ Gray and Darius Lockhart is one that most people it's not going to jump off the page at you if you're not kind of an astute indie, wrestling watcher. But Darius
Lockhart, he's great.
Yeah,
I've watched him a lot in the last 2 weeks. This guy is so smooth. He's so good, especially against Pete. He's had injuries to really kind of hamper his growth, but my God, I could watch this guy all day.
That match alone is like worth checking out, and everything else. I mean, Too Cold Scorpio, Brian Keith. We talked about Too Cold and what he can bring. Brian Keith, who's obviously one of the better indie wrestlers. Like you said, Hitmakers versus Shane Taylor Promotions. Shane Taylor Promotions are great. Like I love those guys, and I have no idea what to expect.
Big man, isn't he, Shane Taylor?
Oh,
he can move for a guy of his size, and he can perform some pretty good moves. Like I remember his match with Ring of Honor with Bandito. Like this guy can deliver when he had the right opponent.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's like, I like those guys. Just they have the great look too. The Shane Taylor Promotion, they come out and they just mean business, man. They just look like they're gonna fuck you up. And there's a perverse thing of, okay, let's see the Hitmakers. This is the first time for the former Hit Row on the Indies. Do they take it in stride? Do they say, hey, you know what, we're going to prove that we shouldn't have been fired? Because it can go one of two ways, and I think that's what I'm kind of fascinated about as well. A lot of the post indie or post WWE people that get into the indies, like sometimes it doesn't quite work. Sometimes they're like, they feel like this is beneath them or whatever, and I'd be fascinated to see if the bell rings and they're just like, nah, fuck it, we're going to prove to you guys you were wrong and we were right. And that, I think, will be really, really interesting to see how that goes. And I'm really interested in Rich Swann versus JTG as well. Like, I'm a big fan of Rich Swann. I think JTG is solid as hell too. So yeah, I don't see why some people are so down on this card. I think it's a pretty damn good for the culture card.
Like, in comparison to the other cards they probably had, yeah, fair enough, but it's still pretty good. Like, I will be interested to see how, the former top dollar can move. Like, he talks a big game, and, he probably couldn't show out to his best ability in the 10, preliminary development matches he's had with WWE. Like, he hasn't really had the best platform to show himself, so this is his chance to prove himself. Impress me. I'm looking forward to seeing how him and Miles, they work on the indies, especially against accomplished indie wrestlers like Shane Taylor and O'Shea Edwards. Like, it's definitely going to be a fun match. I think Big Swole, I'm not her biggest fan. I think, like, at the end of the day, like, she's a bit more sloppy, but Tasha Steelz has some potential. I think, like, maybe if they had a more competent opponent, it could be a bit better for her. But sure, we'll see. I'll watch. I'll still be curious to see how she gets on. And Rich Swann he's awesome. Like, he's just so smooth in the ring. He's got great physical charisma. He's fun, and I'm sure him and JTG will have a blast. Yeah,
so I like that card a lot. It is one that kind of I'll definitely make sure on Friday that I'm able to check it out and watch it on Fight. But so that comes to the end of the ones that we want to talk about, the three shows that we want to talk about. But Joey, I did want to just ask if you had a chance, are there any other shows that you are kind of circling that you definitely want to check out Mania Weekend? Shows that you say, oh wow, I didn't do a preview about that, but I got to make sure that I'm available that weekend to watch that show live. Is there any ones that kind of stand out to you, or shows that kind of have your eye?
Oh, well, there's a few obviously matches that are there that's going to be catching your eye in a few different promotions over team, but nothing too in particular. Like, I'm going to try and check out as much Nick Wayne as I can. To be honest with you, I see he's in a few tag matches as well. There is some interesting matches going about, like, on obviously the Collective as the weekend rolls on, but like, there's nothing 100% that's right. I've devoted myself to these three shows, and that's what I'm going to limit myself to, and I'll be watching with my daughter for WrestleMania, so, well, that's probably going to be a detriment to my mental health. She'll have fun and we'll have a blast watching.
She'll like the bright colors and the explosions and all that sort of stuff. So,
she's a Charlotte Flair fan, unfortunately. So
what happened? How'd you let that happen?
She's
7. Man, tell her she's wrong.
Tell
her she's wrong. No, I'm kidding. That's awesome. So, yeah, I've heard that from people. Yeah, Charlotte Flair does, like, she's one of those people that, like, you know, older adults, like wrestling fans, are just like, I don't get it. But yeah, I've heard from a lot of people that, like, their children love Charlotte Flair, and I have trouble figuring out exactly how or why. But hey, I'm also not 7, so I can't say. So.
Yeah, listen, she loves it. Listen, you gotta make her happy. Whatever, listen, she'll grow out of that phase.
Yeah, she runs the show, man.
Like, a funny story, actually, she walked into me watching Juice Robinson and Moxley for the podcast, and she was like, "What's this?" And I kind of like, I'm just trying to reverse psychology. So, you're not allowed to watch this. This is real wrestling. You know, this is you don't want to watch this. And she was like, immediately, I have to watch this now.
Yeah.
And she sat down and absolutely ate it up. She was like, "Oh God, this is real, Daddy. They're killing each other." I was like, "Yeah, they are, baby. Yeah, they are." But
That's awesome.
there's a few other matches I'll be looking forward to, like Woods and Utah on the Ring of Honor Supercard. I might watch it live, but I'll catch it over the weekend. I love Wheeler Utah. I think this guy is phenomenal, so I'll watch him all day long. There's a lot of little fun matches going on over the week. I don't know, like, you know, exactly which ones, you know, I'll particularly gravitate towards. But again, I'll see what people recommend over the weekend and probably revisit them over the next week.
Yeah, it's probably the best way to approach a WrestleMania weekend. I think anybody who, you know, especially now you're kind of getting into it for the first time in a while, it's very overwhelming. There's some people that kind of dig in. They're like, I'm going to watch everything I could possibly watch. And it's like, don't do that. It's just going to burn yourself out.
You'll hurt yourself.
Yeah. Just pick some stuff that you like. Pick a few shows that you like. And then the best thing to do is at the end of the weekend, there's probably going to be people you trust that have watched a lot of different things, and you can just kind of cobble together recommendations from those people if you want to check it out. But yeah, I would definitely not pressure yourself to have to watch as many things as humanly possible, because yeah, you're gonna be up from 11 a.m. till, you know, or in your case, you'll be up literally all night watching this stuff, and that's not advised, because not all of it's gonna be good, and then you're gonna get delirious.
Especially at the end of the weekend, Rich,
yeah.
I'll be watching Madcap Moss and Drew McIntyre tear the house down. So, you know, listen,
right.
I've got to reserve some special time for some 1920s gimmicks. So it's there. It's gonna be a good week.
Butch, you gotta make sure you're ready for Butch at the end of it. But all right, Joey, before we depart, you want to give one more plug for the Mox podcast? Talk about what maybe some upcoming shows that we can look forward to on that podcast.
Yeah, sure thing, Rich. Thanks very much. We have, like, obviously a bit of a stack card in the next few weeks coming up. We've been discussing Jimmy Jacobs and Mox from the independent scene with Voices of Wrestling contributor Adam Berger. We've been talking about Mox's departure from WWE and his more likely burial from WWE, if you wish, in his last few weeks with Rich Latta. And we'll be looking over the Omega Moxley feud with Garrett Avino Wrestling, as of course is just culminates at the unsanctioned lights out match. So they're matches I'm looking forward to, like, obviously talking with people with, and hopefully, you know, sharing some education with people too, and enjoying the ride that is, you know, John Moxley and professional wrestling. So honestly, Rich, thank you so much.
Oh, no, absolutely. Thanks for coming on here and doing this. Again, the shows we talked about there, for people that want to recap before the culture, 3 p.m. On Friday, April 1st, JCW versus LA Fights. That's at 11 a.m. on April 1st. These are all from the Fair Park in Dallas, Texas, and all streaming live on Fight as well. And then Glory Pro Wrestling Cemetery Gates at 11 a.m. on Thursday, March 31st. So, Joey, thank you so much. Again, you can follow him on Twitter at AwesomeOJoe, and you also follow the Mox Podcast at Mox Podcast for the career review podcast, Wild Thing at Mox Podcast. Joey, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure, Rich. Thank you very much.
All right, and our very special guest here to help us preview the Texas Mania portion of WrestleMania Weekend this year is Justin Bissonnette. You can follow him on Twitter at BissSays. He is going to be able to give us a lot of insights into the Texas Mania stuff, because he's part of it happening. He's part of booking the Texas Mania groups of shows, Inspire Pro Wrestling. He works for, longtime Flagship listener, one of those original, when Joe and I always say that the first few shows had like 5 listeners. Biss, you are one of those 5, and you're still with us to this day. So thank you so much for the years and years and years of support. And yeah, long time we haven't talked in a while. So how are things going?
Oh, very, very good, man. Absolutely. So I kind of feel like I'm cheating here. I love listening to what you guys do every year, and listen to what people's thoughts are on the cards and what's coming up. But I've got kind of an inside look, so I kind of feel like I'm cheating here.
A little bit, yeah, because normally we'd come on here, we'd bear all these shows or whatever, but then you were like, I'll do it. So I'm like, you know what? That's better than bearing all the shows. No, I'm just kidding. You guys have shown out, I think, here with this Texas Mania stuff. I think there's some really, really cool stuff. Joe and I, when we first got wind of what the WrestleMania weekend schedule was going to be, you know, him and I both said that, you know, if we were to go to Dallas, and this is before we even had any, you know, we don't know what, I'm not going, I don't know. Joe's, I think, on the fence right now about going. Maybe you can convince him that he should definitely go here. But one of the things we said is, like, these look like a lot of fun. Like, it's to me, it's what WrestleMania weekend does best, and what WrestleMania weekend, my favorite part of Mania Weekend is seeing wrestlers you've never seen before, seeing promotions you've never seen before, or seeing, matches that you think are going to be like on a top tier level match of the weekends, that sort of stuff. And I think you guys with the Texas Mania stuff and particularly the Inspire Pro show, which I think is one of the better shows of the entire weekend. And that's not just because you're on here. Like I truly believe that. And I've said it time and time again. I've said it with Joe. I've said it with others. I think like what you guys have with Texas Mania is really cool, because I could definitely see myself, if I was going there, you can plop yourself down at St. Jude Hall in Arlington and basically spend an entire day watching wrestling, but getting different things, different wrestlers, different promotions, different groups, different sort of ways of going about wrestling. And I think that's really cool. So I appreciate what you guys did here with Texas Mania. And I'm kind of curious, since you were a part of it happening, how did it all come together? When did you guys get the idea that, hey, let's do this thing, let's do this collective, let's make sure that we show the world what Texas wrestling has to offer?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you very much. Check is in the mail.
Thank you. Perfect. Yeah. You got the address right?
I hope so.
Perfect. Good.
So
I'll edit that out, of course. Yeah.
Of course. So this all kind of goes back to Tampa when we had a small group of promotions that were running the same weekend every weekend in Texas. And we got the spot on the collective, the Texas Forever, I think is what we called it at the time. And we really thought that there was something special happening in Texas and wanted to be able to showcase it. So when that fell through, obviously we didn't follow up and do Tampa. The year that they ran, just didn't feel like the right time. I don't know how many people actually traveled for that. But New Texas kind of went on their own and kind of did. I don't know if they had a New Texas show, but I think a lot of those guys were on a lot of the shows that were in Tampa. So it kind of started with Kiefer Bartek in New Texas going, hey, I'd like to do this again. And then Lamont from VIP also took a group of guys out to Tampa, and he runs Dallas regularly with VIP. So it sort of became this thing where it was me pestering both those guys, being like, all right, Lamont, do you have a building? Kiefer, have you got a building? I definitely want to do something. In the end, I think Lamont ended up with the building and then kind of meshed those two groups together, and then filled in with the rest of the Texas guys. So it was basically me bothering both those guys to make sure that we had a spot, and then Lamont finally being able to come through with the building.
Well, thank you guys for doing that, because there's some really cool stuff here. Like you're basically running, for people that don't know, Texas Mania stuff starts Saturday, April 2nd at 12 p.m., starts at noon, runs all the way, like literally all day. It runs until 11 p.m., so it'll bleed into Sunday, and you guys are right back at it Sunday the 3rd at 9 a.m., and then running all the way through Sunday as well. So the entire weekend, Saturday and Sunday, you guys are going to be doing stuff here for Texas Mania. So that's going to be really cool. So I'm glad you pestered them. I'm glad you bothered them, because I think it's going to be a really cool thing. To me, it's one of the standouts of this year's WrestleMania weekend. So, and as far as, I'll ask this when we get closer to when we talk about Inspire Pro, which you had a hand in, because I'm very curious on your approach to booking a show on WrestleMania weekend. We've never had somebody who's actually done that on the show, so I'm appreciative of doing that. But let's start out with April 2nd. We'll kind of work our way to the show. When we get to Inspire, we'll dig a little bit deeper into there. But we start off kicking us off, River City Wrestling at 12 p.m. Texas Mania is, again, like I said, St. Jude Hall, Arlington, Texas. Real quickly before we get into that show, was there any thought to how to stream these, or were you guys just looking for live event stuff basically with this?
So the original thought was live event. I know for us, and I think New Texas is going to broadcast like a day later, because you're competing with so many other shows for that prime spot. We're going to put our stuff out on YouTube just so we can get as many eyes as possible on it.
Smart.
I mean, it's kind of like when we first started, we put all our shows on YouTube just to get the bandwidth and as many people as possible to see it. We kind of feel like we're restarting again, so we're kind of back in that same mindset. So we will put it on YouTube. I've just got to figure out how long it's going to take them to edit and get all the bells and whistles on. I'm not sure if anybody from Texas Mania is streaming live. VIP would be the only one that I would think would be possible.
Yeah, as far as I know, there are nobody, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see in the next week if maybe somebody gets that together. They feel a little FOMO, feel like we maybe should do that or not. But even if they don't, I think this is a great event or a great series of events for anybody going live. Like you said, you can just basically plop down in Arlington at St. Jude Hall and watch 2 days worth of shows. And get a lot of different looks and a lot of different wrestlers that you're going to see. So I will start with this Texas Mania 3 River City Wrestling. Again, I said at noon. Again, St. Jude Hall, Arlington, Texas. RCW Championship, Gino Medina versus Cam Cole versus Mysterious Q versus Will All Day. You have Maddie Renkowski and Katie Forbes versus Kai Vibes and Jazzy Yang. Khan versus Weston Blake. Tom Latimer versus Sledge. Diego Rene versus Brandon Weiss. The Texas Treats and David Kidd versus Anthony Andrews, Casey Blackrose, and Rob Love. And the Pillars of Destiny and Christy Janes versus the DFW Cartel and Alejandra Lyons. So that is, I will say one thing right off the bat. That is a very River City Wrestling show, and that's, I think, what I appreciate most about what you guys did here is there are, some wrestlers that, hey, we're able to get this guy, we're able to, this guy's coming in, we'll put him in here, we'll book him. But for the most part, these are authentic shows. These feel like the promotions that are here are booking what you would get on a River City Wrestling show, what you would get on an Inspire show. And I appreciate that. I like, coming with your best at WrestleMania weekend and saying, hey, this is what we are, this is who we are. I appreciate that approach that everybody seemed to take.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to be clear and honest with everybody, I haven't spoken with River City Wrestling in a long time. A very mature Sammy Guevara quit their company in the middle of our ring at one point, and there's a little bit of heat there, but
a little.
This show is awesome. This show is exactly what you said. This is a very River City Wrestling show. This is what they would do in San Antonio, and I think that's pretty cool because if you're traveling halfway across the world, you don't want to see the same show over and over again with 3 different letters, right? So Gino Medina is amazing. I know some people probably watch him on MLW, but to get to see him in his element in Texas is a little bit different, and I think he has a little bit more juice when he's around here. That main event is all Booker T students, so when those guys get together, there's always a good chemistry there. I want to point out the Texas Treats too are a tag team that has just recently came back. You may know Don Juan from early Ring of Honor, from FIP. That's him and Chris Marvel. Locally, they're very well-known tag team. Both of them have spent a lot of time training the younger guys here, so definitely worth watching. And then Alejandra Lyon, I think it's somebody that really has a special something.
Yes, it's a pretty fun show. It's going to kick us off here. And yeah, that main event does sound awesome. And there's a lot of other, the reality of wrestling. It's a big weekend for, though, those anybody in Booker T's camp and any one of Booker T's, students, because they have 2 shows that they're doing earlier in the weekend that are filled with their students. And then, like you said, here it's an all Booker T student, main event there. And Mysterious Q and Will All Day are in a few other matches, a few other highlight matches on the weekend as well. So yeah, and Gino Medina, who is awesome, like you said. So that's definitely one to check out there. So that is River City Wrestling. I move on now to 3 p.m. Gulf Coast Wrestling. Gino Medina again versus Matt Cardona. Bandito versus ASF. NWA Tag Team titles. La Rebellion, who they're defending this title like 20 times this weekend. It's pretty awesome. Moonshine Mantell and Ryan Davidson. GCWA Women's Championship. Rachel Rose versus Chelsea Green. Rising Star Championship. Chris Charter versus Chandler Hopkins. This is a really, really fun card here. And these are people, it's a collection of people that I'm aware of because I watch a lot of, I watch a decent amount of Texas Indies, but there might be people that aren't aware of them. And then also people that you probably are aware of. So this is one that's a little bit more of a showcase of a little bit of your local talent, but also like bringing in a Matt Cardona, bringing in a Bandito, bringing in those sort of people as well. It makes it for a pretty cool show. I like this one. This is a really, really fun show to me, this Gulf Coast Wrestling Academy show.
This is sort of like this is sort of my like hidden gem show of the whole Texas Mania. Jeff down at Gulf Coast, and they run basically out of Corpus Christi. He does a really good job. He doesn't get involved in the politics of Texas wrestling very much. So it's a cool melting pot where basically anybody can show up, and kind of other places, certain guys don't wrestle each other because they work with certain groups. And that's kind of faded over the years, but Corpus has always been really good about, not really following those rules and meshing those people up together there. But this is a great example of bringing in people from the outside like Cardona and Bandito and mix them with Texas guys. That ASF and Bandito match looks amazing.
I was going to say, that's one that I highlighted and double highlighted and triple highlighted and circled. I mean, that could definitely be the match of the weekend. I hope Gulf Coast has got some tape there. They're ready to film something. I mean, that match, I'm going to assume that people are going to need to see that match when it's done. And if you've never seen ASF, Joe and I talked about him on the Flagship a couple weeks ago. I mean, could definitely be one of the guys that's like the breakout stars of the weekend, where a lot of people aren't aware of him, but I think very, very soon a lot of people are going to be aware of ASF. I mean, he has kind of been a hidden gem so far in Texas, but I don't know how long it's going to last. Unfortunately, maybe for you guys, I think this guy's going to hit it big very, very, very soon.
Yeah, I think it's coming. Ryan Davidson is just that classic Texas hoss. I think he was in Tampa last year a little bit. And then Rachel Rose, I know Joe talked a lot about Rachel after the new Texas show he was at, is extremely talented. I think she's the next female competitor from Texas to kind of blow up. I'm not sure if this is the spot to really shine, but she's got quite a few matches throughout the weekend too. And Chris Carter versus Chandler Hopkins. Some people may know Chandler from Dark, and I think he does Warrior wrestling up in Chicago as well. Chris, I think it's actually Chris Carter. Chris is one of those guys where I swear he just wants to die in the middle of the ring, man. So they're going to do something stupid. I guarantee you. I've kind of got my eye on that match too.
So we'll move on now to the next one here, Texas Mania 3 Hybrid Mania 2. A lot of numbers here. Texas Mania 3 Hybrid Mania 2. This is the 6 p.m. show. This is a wild show. This is a very, very strange one. I think it's cool, but I'm not quite sure. There's so much stuff going on here. So you have Jimmy Wang Yang, Jazz Yang, and Miss Michelle versus Braden Weiss, Maddie Renkowski, and Kai Vibes. You have the Wrestling with Regret YouTube Championship, Steve Miggs versus Levi Shapiro, Vet Mandergriff versus Diego Rene versus Johnny Rocket versus Jet Black, Tom Latimer and Casey Blackrose versus David Kidd and Don Juan, Chris Marvel versus Joe Alonzo, Vic Endurance and Robert Baines versus Akai Living and Devin Carter, and then Sledge, Jess E. James, Manny Lemons, not that Jesse James, another Jess E. James versus Con Moonshine Mantel, and JP Harlow. I mean, wow, there's a lot of stuff happening on this Hybrid Mania show.
You buried the lead here with Mr. Ooh La La. Is that the Mr. Ooh La La?
Okay, so this is the problem with the Mr. Ooh La La, and I don't know if you've there's two Mr. Ooh La Las running around here, and no one's quite sure who is what, because there's one that votes in like our match of the year and like the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame or whatever, and then there's this other Mr. Ooh La La who isn't the same Mr. So I don't know which Mr. Ooh La La this is. I can't believe there's a disputed Mr. Ooh La La, but there is. So I don't know which Mr. Ooh La La this is. Probably the one you're thinking of, but I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah. I can't guarantee it.
So I will definitely be watching this because I'll be in the building getting ready for our stuff. So what this is like is it's sort of when you're really into the NFL draft and you watch like the Senior Bowl, but I mean, because this is a lot of the guys that are hybrid students and students of Rodney Mack mixed in with some names. So it's sort of like the Hulula Bowl or something like that, So you don't know what you're gonna to really see, but you'll probably see somebody that's a big name in Texas in the next 2 or 3 years.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a very interesting card, and that main event that we were talking about there, or the main event. Jimmy Wang Yang, his daughter Jazz Yang, Miss Michelle. That's a pretty interesting team you have there, and yeah, it's just it's a strange show. Like it's not one, but if you're there, like you're gonna see people that you've probably never seen before. Some you may never see again, but hey, it's a very unique and very interesting show. So I appreciate them doing that and not just kind of, like you said, having the same card that you can see anywhere else this weekend. This is very uniquely a Hybrid Mania 2 card that you're gonna watch here at 6 p.m.
Absolutely, and Maddie is extremely talented as well. So I know she's been on some darks and done some enhancement talent for AEW, so definitely one to keep an eye on as well.
And she's wrestled a bunch, Maddie Renkowski. I think she has at least 4 or 5 three bookings as far as I can tell right now. But for women, it's not a huge weekend for women, unfortunately. There's not a whole lot of standout women's shows. But still, for her to get three bookings this weekend is pretty good. That puts her in some rarefied air with in terms of women this weekend. But let's get to this show, Inspire Prime. I don't know who the hell booked this shit. This is
oh my god,
garbage show, honestly.
Fucking super indie bullshit.
Yeah, what the hell is this stuff? 9 p.m. St. Jude Hall, Arlington, Texas. No, this is a hell of a card here. Davey Richards versus Great Scott, Brian Keith versus Gary J, Arrow Boy versus Prince Adam, Exodus Prime versus Mysterious Q versus Pistolero versus Will All Day, Steve Orino versus John Bedlam, Born Haters versus the Great Ones and Luigi Primo, Ryan Davidson, T-Ray versus T-Ray Watford, and then Killer Kate and Jordan Blade versus Rachel Rose and Tootie Lynn. So yeah, that's first off my question before we kind of go match by match and kind of figure out how this all came together. What's it like booking a WrestleMania weekend show? Because this would be your first foray into truly booking a WrestleMania weekend show, correct?
Yeah, it's we so much are in tune with kind of Austin and Austin culture and that fan base that it's you have to kind of take a step back and try to book something that's going to be for the general masses, but we didn't want to lose that Inspire flavor. We didn't want to run just a show with whatever shiny toys we could grab onto that weekend. It on it you're gonna think that I'm blowing smoke, but it was sort of all right, let me write a show for Joe and Rich,
well, it
was sort of how I approached it, believe it or not. I wanted the best independent wrestler I could get, and so I reached out to Davey Richards. It was the first person I reached out to. And then I wanted to do at least one match that I thought was a dream match. And that's sort of where Brian Keith and Gary J comes in. I was shocked no one had done that yet. So really wanted to put that on the card. And that's what we'll start with. That will start the show right at 9:00. We'll be still tipping. We'll play over the PA and out will come Brian Keith. And then we wanted to we didn't want to only have half a show of our guys. So we sort of kept everything else fairly local with, Steve Orino and John Bedlam. Steve Orino's been the guy that's been there for us since basically day one. And John Bedlam is a guy that I really see a lot of promise in, and I think will be the future of Inspire. So it's sort of old generation versus new generation. T-Ray Watford and Ryan Davison is just a big old hoss fight, which is right up my alley. And then the women's tag, we have sort of a feud going on between Rachel Rose and Killer Kate, and Jordan Blades from that Washington, D.C. area. And I'm really high on all the people kind of coming out of that area. I think it's really an underrated area. And then Tootie Lynn, that girl drove down 2 or 3 times just to help set up and see if there was a spot on the show. And now with the NWA stuff, she's blowing up. She's gotten her name out there. It's really cool to be able to kind of showcase her as more of a name now.
Absolutely. Yeah, she's been busting her ass over the last year, and it's starting to show. You can definitely see the improvement in not only her work, but also the improvement in terms of more people being aware of her name, getting booked more places, doing all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I definitely want to talk about Brian Keith and Gary J, and I want to circle that, highlight that, all that sort of stuff. I mean, Brian Keith is a guy that I've said this on a couple of the shows that I've done, the previews. We always talk about, who could emerge as the MVP of Mania Weekend, who will emerge as the person that everybody is talking about when this Mania Weekend is over. And I kind of guessed that Brian Keith might have been one of those people last year, and it didn't quite work out that way for whatever reason. I still think he had a pretty good weekend. But this weekend, I really do think him being in his backyard, him being booked in more prominent spots, him being booked in matches like this one against Gary J. I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to Brian Keith being the guy that once this weekend is over, everybody goes, oh, wait, why doesn't everybody book this guy all around the world? I mean, this guy should be doing everything everywhere. I think he's tremendous. I think he's great. And I don't know that you could have booked a better match than him versus Gary J. And have it start off your show. I mean, that is going to start your show off in just the biggest way possible with those two dudes going out there and just beating the ever-living shit out of each other for 20 minutes. I can't wait. That sounds like a hell of a match. So good for you on booking that. That's like you said, trying to book the best match I can this weekend. I think you definitely succeeded with that, man. That looks like a top tier one.
I've literally sat on that match since before the pandemic, sitting in a heavy metal show, watching Brian work and being like, holy shit, I have to put this guy with Gary J. So just the fact that it's gone this long and no one has jumped on it. Maybe
is that really true that nobody else has booked this match? What are they doing?
No, this is the first time. So Heavy Metal booked the match, but the show got canceled. It wasn't announced, but they had booked the match. So, but that particular show got canceled. So this will be the first time matchup, which is just insane to me.
Wow, that's you're everyone else is trash. You're treasure here with Brian Keith versus Gary J, man. That's awesome. And then Davey Richards, like we said, Davey Richards versus Great Scott. Now, I don't know a ton about Great Scott, and I imagine a lot of our listeners don't as well. I'd imagine 100% of people listening to this are aware of Davey Richards, what he can do, what he has done, what he's doing on the indies now. But tell us a little bit on Great Scott and why you thought Davey Richards versus Great Scott would be a match that you guys should book.
Yeah, so Great Scott's just kind of this. He's a journeyman guy in Texas. He started off at the Funaki dojo. He spent time in Mexico. Basically was like borderline homeless in Mexico, learning lucha libre. He was down there with a lot of guys that like he was down there with Doki of all people.
Oh man,
like in just a weird group, Tadasuke, and kind of just learned a lot, then came back to San Antonio, and he's been a big staple of heavy metal. He had been with us when we very first started. He feuded with Carson and Moonshine and Mike Dell. He was that guy. Like they wouldn't even let his name be announced. Was the first storyline that he had, and then he kind of moved down to Mexico and drifted away from us. But now that he's back, he's been working with heavy metal for the past 2 years. I worked with him on the deathmatch tournament that we did with heavy metal, but he's not really a deathmatch guy. He's kind of a throwback guy. Very much like almost like a Nick Bockwinkel type. Almost like a Beverly Brothers as well kind of gimmick, but he's very fundamentally sound, and I think that they'll play off of each other very well.
Yeah, it's a really cool match to see, and I'm excited about that one. Is there any other things on the show? I mean, you mentioned a few of the other ones. Is there any match that maybe we glossed over real quickly? That I guess here, Mysterious Q is somebody I should mention again. We've talked about him a couple times on the show already. As a guy who, again, like another person who I do think probably deserves to be booked in more places all across the country, and has been popping up here and there a little bit, but this weekend presents another great opportunity for him to kind of show what he can do, and in his backyard in Texas, doing stuff. He's a guy that I'm kind of surprised isn't more places. I thought after last year he would appear a little bit more and get a little bit more buzz, and it just hasn't happened yet. But I think he's a supreme talent.
Yeah, I know St. Louis Anarchy brought him up recently, so I'm hoping that that's going to be the start of him getting out more. Pistolero is really good, another guy from San Antonio. And then Exodus Prime, I know nothing about. Like Exodus Prime is one of these guys that everyone has bugged me to use. I've seen his footage, so we're giving him an opportunity. And then Arrow Boy and Prince Adam. Prince Adam's another guy. Was part of ACH's school. Was part of the AAPW school in Austin. And I think he's challenged with his height, but I think he's poised to really break out if he's given opportunities like this. And then, Airboy is probably known for more of like kind of a hardcore style of lucha libre, but I think that meshes a little bit better with Adam than a pure luchador.
Absolutely. So that's his Inspire Pro. That's at 9 p.m. And then it follows up with, I think, man, these are two back-to-back shows, maybe my two favorite back-to-back shows this entire Mania weekend. New Texas Pro Cowboys from Hell at 11 p.m. So you're staying up a little late for this, but I promise you it's well worth it because you are getting New Texas Pro Wrestling Championship. Brian Keith, we have an error in our right up there. Brian Keith versus Josh Alexander. Are you kidding me? Brian Keith versus Josh Alexander. Are you what? Why'd you not book that? Come on, man. Get your head out of your ass. What are you doing? No, I'm kidding. That's a hell of a show, though. So, man.
I get to double dip. I get to call this show, which I'm insane. I am like I'm gonna be a ball of nerves fucking running this show and then go right into doing commentary. But yeah, Brian Keith versus Josh Alexander is pretty badass, man. That's a hell of a title match, and I really appreciate what New Texas Pro does. Like, I'm not really at the stage of doing this thing where I work with a lot of other people, but anytime I get a chance to call matches for them, I really do enjoy it.
Yeah, and man, Brian Keith's chest is only going to be healing. Is that why you did that as the opener, Brian Keith, the Gary J, so he could rest his chest up?
Some time to rest him.
get some lotion on it because it's about to get chopped all over again in a couple minutes.
Starting to figure out how we make the sauces here.
Anyway, New Texas Pro Wrestling Women's Championship, Rachel Rose versus Maria May. Again, Rachel Rose, another great a person that could. And we mentioned it before. Joe's real high on her. The stuff I've seen, I've really liked her. I think she was doing some stuff with AEW this week as well. I forget exactly, but it's not going to be too long before she's big time. Like you said, she is going to be the next breakout woman from Texas for sure. And this could be a huge weekend, and this could be a huge match for her to really show what she can do.
She does all the little things right. The little things you can't teach, she does right, and all the other shit you can learn. Yeah. Her
in ring, her bell to bell is still, it's still getting there, and obviously she's like crazy young too, isn't she? Like what? She's
younger than you would even think.
Yeah. So but like that stuff you learn. You know what I mean? Like that you can figure that out. You can figure out the bell to bell. You can figure out how to be. You can't teach somebody to just own the room the second they walk out of the curtain. You either have that or you don't. Some people can learn it eventually, but most of the time you can tell from day one, okay, they have it, they get it, she gets it, she has it. So yeah, like you said, she can own the room already. The work will catch up when it catches up as she gets a little bit older and gets a little bit more experience, but the presence is already just next level good.
Yeah, and by the way, the guy working with her on that bell-to-bell stuff is Booker T. So,
I think not a bad person to learn from.
Track record there as a trainer.
Yeah, she's definitely one. If you've never seen Rachel Rose before, we've talked about it on the flagship before. Keep an eye on her this weekend as well. It really, really has potential to break out. Violence is Forever versus Fly Def. ASF versus Chris Bay, Lufisto versus Hyon, Lone Star Championship, Max Heights versus Terrelli Tempo. Do I have that right?
Terrell Tempo.
Terrell Tempo. Okay, sorry about that. No Holds Barred, Aaron Mercer versus Sky D La Crimson, I guess.
Man.
Yeah, I'm not very good at the names here.
ACW days, I used to butcher that one all the time. It is Sky de Lacrimosa.
Wow. Okay, I would have never gotten that one. Thank you for doing that. Akira and Hoodfoot, that's a no holds barred match. Alec Price versus Will Allday versus T-Ray, and Mysterious Q versus Mysterious Opponent.
Oh, that's Mysterious O.
Right.
Man, like I could go down this whole card. Fly Def is a really great tag team.
Zach Mason and Warren Johnson as well. I forgot to give their names.
Kind of in the mold of Harlem Heat, Zach Mason is the big, fire plug of a dude, and Warren Johnson is kind of the athletic guy. And then Violence is Forever. I'm sure those guys. Like, really cool to see a good indie tag team match. Like some of these guys, like if you're not getting a ton of bookings as yourself, like find a dude and make a tag team and put some effort into it. Like, we need more tag teams. ASF and Chris Bay, that's a sleeper match as well. Chris Bay is really good on the indies. I assume he's really good on TNA as well. I just don't watch it. But yeah, Chris Bay is amazing.
Yeah, that's another ASF. We've talked about him a bunch on this segment here. I mean, he's going to have a huge weekend, and this will just be another match on the weekend for him to really stand out and have, prove that he belongs on the major stage. And yeah, Chris Bay is a pro's pro for sure. And yeah, even that women's match there, Lufisto versus Hyon, it has me pretty excited as well. Man. I mean, this is from top to bottom a great show. Like I said, the back-to-back of Inspire Pro and this show. I mean, dude, if you're showing up at 7 p.m., 8 p.m. and just going to sit here for the next 4 or 5 hours, you are going to get two tremendous shows, two potential shows of the entire weekend back to back.
Yeah, don't sleep on Aaron Mercer either. Aaron Mercer has really done a lot over the last year and a half, and I know him and Akira have really been dying to work with each other. Akira is a guy from the deathmatch scene that I think is a hell of a worker. I think he's one of those guys that can do both, So I'm kind of looking forward to seeing those two mix it up. Sky is just a masochist, and if you've seen Hoodfoot, you know what Hoodfoot's all about.
You know what you're getting there. Yeah, Akira is one of those people that I put in like the Alice Cologne thing, where they're good wrestlers that do can do deathmatch stuff, but they're not necessarily like they could be good deathmatch wrestlers, but because they're good wrestlers, you know what I mean? They know how to do the bell to bell stuff too, and that's sometimes important. There's some guys that go out there and they're really good at just hitting each other with shit. He's a really good wrestler that can also make hitting himself with shit, work out and stand out. So that looks like a hell of a show. And New Texas Pro, obviously, if you've never heard about them, you've never seen them, they are on IWTV. Pretty regularly as well. So if you're a subscriber to IWTV, you can watch a lot of their shows. I would hope that this one's getting filmed for that. I would pray that it's getting filmed for that because this is absolutely one that I want to make sure I watch, as soon as it's up and available.
I'm doing commentary for it, so it better be going on.
It better, that's what it's for free, I guess. So, all right, so there you go. That ends up, that's your Saturday, guys. So a loaded Saturday for Texas Mania there. A lot of really good stuff to check out. Then you're right back at it, 9 a.m. So now are you showing up on Saturday or on Sunday? Are you a part of any of the setup or anything going on, or are you just chilling now because you've had a long day on Saturday?
Yeah, I'm waking up Sunday morning, whenever that is. I'm checking out of the hotel room and I'm heading back to Austin way. But I might stick around to check out this women's show. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it's pretty good. This one, it took a little while to get announced. We weren't quite sure what the show was going to be or what was, and then they came up with a card a couple days ago as of this recording, and it's a hell of a card here at 9 a.m. It's a tough time slot, man. Sunday at 9 a.m. on WrestleMania weekend is a tough spot, but I would go out of your way to check this out if you're going to be awake and if you're going to be around, especially if you're staying in Arlington. I mean, what else are you doing? It's wrestling. You're here for wrestling the whole weekend. Go to it. You have a DFW All-Pro Women's Championship, Holidead versus Janai Kai versus Tootie Lynn. The second wrestling championship, Billy Starks versus Roche Chanel. Danny B versus Zoe Sky. Alejandro the Lion versus Lufisto, Jessica James versus Danica De La Roche, and then Killa Kate versus Viva Van. But there's some good stuff on that show. Like you mentioned, the main event I do like, but this is a pretty good women's show, all told.
Yeah, and so not to pull the curtain back too much, but this is the person that booked this show, this is the first show that they've ever booked. So really good stuff here. Jessica James was a staple of the area. Now it's probably been 7 years, but she's been coming back. She was injured, like fairly seriously injured for a while, but she's done some AEW Dark stuff, and now she's taking independent bookings again. So pretty cool to see her back and active. Jeanette Kai is awesome. Have you had a chance to see her?
I have, yeah. I've seen her on the Blood Sports. I've seen her in a few different places. Yeah, I love her style. And the one thing with her is, like, sometimes she's very, very ambitious and sometimes it doesn't land all the time because, like, she needs to be in there with the right opponent. But when it lands, I mean, she's got a really unique style, a great look, a great presence about her. Yeah, so when it lands like real good. And more times than not, she's landing, especially in, like, if she's there with the right opponents. And I think Holidead and Tootie Lynn are those right opponents.
Yeah, and then I will say Billy Starks, I think, is starting to turn the corner. Were you able to watch her match with Gary J from St. Louis Anarchy?
Yeah, actually, yes, I did. I was able to check that out. Yes, I did like that. Yeah. Like
that match alone, I was like, okay, I see what people have been talking to me about. Like, it's definitely there. We have a strict, like, 18 and up rule. But if she keeps improving like that could be somebody I'd make an exception for. And then Danny B is from Oklahoma City. She's extremely talented. She was down at Booker T's school as well. I don't know if she's still down there, but definitely somebody to keep an eye on as well.
Yeah, it's a hell of a show at 9 a.m. So yeah, credit to that person for right out of the gates booking what I think is a pretty damn good show on this weekend. Then at 12 p.m., again on this Sunday, it's Texas All-Star Wrestling. So far all we have, Texas All-Star Wrestling Cruiserweight Championship. As of this recording, that's not to say by the time this comes out, they'll have a full card, but as of this recording, Texas All-Star Wrestling, all we have is their Cruiserweight Championship match, Nathan Bradley versus Estrella Galactica.
Yeah, I think you guys touched on it on the Flagship. Like, this is one of those promotions that was around, like, in the mid-90s as far as an independent promotion. Like, there's you can get a hold of, like, a Necro Butcher versus Hot Stuff Hernandez match that took place at All-Star Wrestling. Like, that was, like, on a Necro Butcher comp I had in, like, freshman year of college. So very there's a lot of legacy to Texas All-Star Wrestling in Texas. But the names, like, announced for the show are not bad. So I don't know how they're going to mix all the ingredients other than this Nathan Bradley match. But but there's some decent students that are on this show. The Camachos are announced, and that's a pretty fun tag team from the DFW area. And then Nathan Bradley is a guy that's super athletic. We used him in our return kind of showcase show. So I wanted to come on here and just be like, yeah, absolutely, go fucking have lunch or something during this time. But there's actually some pretty talented guys that are going to be on the show. I just don't know how they're going to be used.
Yeah, you would like to know the full card before you take your plans away, especially if you're watching so much wrestling, this weekend.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing I would definitely tell all these promoters is like, give people a reason to come to your show. Especially on a weekend where there's so much going on. It's very easy to say, you know what? I'm kind of done with wrestling. I'm going to go eat lunch. I'm just going to go chill. I just want to get away from wrestling for a little bit. Don't let them do that. Say, no. Here's our card and it rocks, and you have to go to the show now. You have to do more wrestling. Do that.
Yeah.
Force us to go to wrestling shows. Yes.
Yeah.
Global Wrestling Federation at 3 p.m. Also going under the same assumption there that we only got one match so far as of this recording, but I will say
it's
this:
a hell of a match.
It's a hell of a match. GWF Unified World Heavyweight Championship, Lou Gotti versus JTG. I mean, it's one match, but it's a hell of a match, as you said there. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah. So this used to be called Onslaught Pro Wrestling. I can't talk too bad about Onslaught Pro Wrestling because they hired me as a manager. I used to go up there so that I could work with Barrett Brown and scout him before he was over 18 years of age. So at some point they purchased the Global Wrestling Federation name. I don't know. I can't tell you for sure that they purchased it from someone that owned it. My understanding is that ESPN still owns it, but maybe they just own the footage. I know Chaz and Tug Taylor claimed to own it at one point, but once they tried to put the footage up on YouTube, it got blocked. So that's kind of the story there. They are under the assumption that they have purchased that name and are carrying on the lineage.
There's still a lot of global on Peacock, right? There's.
Yeah, I don't know
that they own that, but anyway,
yeah.
Hey, do it until someone tells you can't. I guess it's the best way to do it. So
if you're not flying close enough to the sun to get the cease and desist, then I guess you're kind of doing something right. I don't know.
Yeah, as far as I know, that ESPN still holds the library, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I guess I don't know enough to say for sure. So good on them if they did. That's a hell of a legacy to own, though, the global thing. If you can own that and keep that legacy alive, and you're not gonna be able to bring back the Sportatorium, but that those letters still do have a little bit of cachet in the area. Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, they were renting Rub from the Sportatorium when they were there, so I don't know. Do you? I know you don't do the Twitter thing anymore, but Chaz Taylor is an amazing Twitter follow. Speaking of weird,
I'll make sure I grab him. Yeah, I still I still keep one eye on it. I'm not interacting as much, but I'll make sure I follow.
It is sleaze as can be, but there's a little gift to you and the listeners is the Chaz Taylor of global wrestling fame, Twitter.
Is it Chaz Taylor 713? Is that the guy we're looking at here?
Oh, God, I'm sure it is.
I think it is. Yeah, it got a very got some old school mullet guy. Yeah, yeah, that's him. All right, that looks pretty awesome. So I'm in. I followed. I'm ready to go. So there you go, Chaz Taylor. So that's all we know for global right there. So that's 3 p.m. on Sunday. Things do not, unfortunately, get any better here at 6 p.m. Laredo Wrestling Alliance. Biss, I hope you have some inside info because I got nothing.
This is I mean, there's a lot of talented people that have come from here. Roxy, who just got signed by WWE, and ASF both came from Laredo Wrestling Alliance. A lot of Daga students are there. That's where he was training previously. So there's that. I would have liked to at least see a main event here.
I know they have a poster with guys on them. So, I mean, they have a bunch of names. They have Santana Jackson, The Mountain, Samson, JC Valentine, Blackheart, Rob Love, Stud Stash, Vinny Pacifico, Rodney Mack is announced, Ricky Reyes is announced. They have a bunch of names announced, but yeah, I'm kind of surprised that we didn't get a full any sort of card, or like you said, any sort of main event. So again, don't give people a reason to not go to shows. Like, give them a reason to go to the show. Yeah,
especially that 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock time slot. Those are brutal.
Yeah, those are. Yeah, you don't want to give up on those time slots because there's a reason you guys are running up against WrestleMania weekend. And I guess that's a question I was going to ask you guys too. Was that ever a thought of what do we do during WrestleMania? Do we just not run during WrestleMania? Do we not run during this? Or were you like, no, who cares? Screw it, run.
I'm a dick. Like the times that I've been in the town that WrestleMania weekend's running, I always run into people that are just there to see the indie stuff,
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what, and probably emboldened kind of by some of the stuff you guys have said, and even listening to the reviews of this and hearing people echo that, as fuck it, let's run up against her. If they're going to go 2 nights and spread themselves out, like, and not make it a sacred night, fuck it, let's go.
Yeah.
If I had done a building with less promotions, I probably would have doubled up nights and tried to run a super indie show against WrestleMania Sunday. But obviously that's not how things worked out. But that was my mindset going in.
Yeah, and I think it's a smart one. Yeah, Joe and I have always said, like, there's people would avoid WrestleMania like the plague, and we're like, don't do that, especially in like these peak years where there was a ton of like really, really great talent that was there, and nobody would run on WrestleMania. Everybody would kind of avoid it. And, I get it because it was on a Sunday. I get it because, Sunday night and most people were kind of probably done or tired or, ready to get going or whatever. But if they're going to run on a Saturday, now screw that. Do not like get off of Saturday. Don't avoid Saturday. Go at them. Don't push all your stuff to Thursday and Friday just because they're running on there. I mean, yeah, I'm somebody who has been to a WrestleMania weekend and didn't spend, a second watching any, main roster WWE stuff. And I don't think I would ever. Like, I honestly think if I ever go to a WrestleMania weekend, I will never. I have no plan of going to a WrestleMania ever. So yeah, I'm glad you guys stuck with that. And yeah, if they're running 2 days, you can't avoid 2 days. You can't just have 2 nights that are completely off. The limits. Like, you just got to run against them and see how it goes. So hopefully it's successful for you guys. But then you have 9 p.m. New Texas Pro is back with Texas Till I Die. Davey Richards versus Mysterious Q. New Texas Pro Women's Championship, Rachel Rose versus Willow Nightingale. Hyon versus Billy Starks. Cole Radrick versus Aaron Mercer. And Heather Monroe versus Shazza McKenzie. Another really, really good show from New Texas Pro.
Yeah, I will unfortunately not be calling this one. I'll probably be playing MLB The Show by this point.
Yeah, it'll be out. It'll be out by then for sure. So.
Davey Richards versus Mysterious Q is awesome. That High-End and Billy Starks match, that I would circle that if you're a women's wrestling fan. And then Cole Radrick's a guy that I've really been impressed by the times that I've seen him live. So him and Aaron Mercer, I'm sure will be that's going to be brutal. That's going to be just kind of fucking wicked, I think. And then Heather Monroe versus Shazza McKenzie, that's like almost like a clone match. It seems like they're very similar.
Yeah, it's a really, really cool card. And Davey Richards, Mysterious Q, that sounds awesome. That's, so that all sounds really good. And I'm glad New Texas Pro, I think they have a really, really good weekend here. And then the final show, Sunday night at like midnight, or 11:59 p.m., rounding out Texas Mania 3 from St. Jude Hall in Arlington, Texas. Dude, this is an awesome show, man. Like, this is wild. Like, if I was there, like, I'd be really tired at this point. I'd be really, really exhausted. But man, I have to find a way to get there. Your main event, presumably, I guess, I mean, you gotta have to. You're booking Manora Suzuki. It's gotta be your main event. Manora Suzuki versus Barrett Brown. And you mentioned that name a little bit earlier, Barrett Brown. People that have listened to the Flagship might be aware of Barrett Brown. People that have watched Texas wrestling for the last decade are aware of Barrett Brown. But what a spot for Barrett Brown versus Manora Suzuki at this VIP wrestling show. This looks awesome.
Yeah, and a few years ago, when the LA JoJo first started up, Barrett kind of put all his focus into that. So I know that this match means a lot to him. Yeah, that's something else. Like, if you had told me that match was going to happen like 5 years ago, I would have laughed you out of the building. Like, just doesn't make any sense. But like, here we are, Barrett Brown, freaking LA JoJo young boy, taking on Manora Suzuki. Like, pretty cool.
Shane Taylor versus Low-Key, which sounds really fun as well. Ninja Mac versus Matt Cross, which again, like, for people that, Matt Cross back in the day was like one of the best high flyers in the world and can still do that when he needs to. And I think against Ninja Mac, he will do that because, I mean, that's Ninja Mac's one of the best high flyers in wrestling right now. Matt Cross, I mean, this is like a get my shit in, offer match here. I mean, this is like a dream match of guys getting their shit in, and I cannot wait for Ninja Mac versus Matt Cross. VIP tag team titles here. Fly Def, which you mentioned earlier, versus Injustice. Josh Woods versus Brian Keith, just rounding out Brian Keith's just awesome weekend. And credit to everybody for booking Brian Keith in good matches and not just, taking him for granted. I mean, every single match that he has the weekend feels like they put some care into it and made sure he was against a good opponent. Casey Navarro versus Chandler Hopkins, and then ASF, Izzy James, Helio Guerrero versus Gringo Loco B-Boy and a mystery partner. So this is a hell of a show here.
Yeah, Texas loves his B-Boy. So that's pretty cool just to see him on there. Yeah, Matt Cross and Ninja Mac, that's like a match made in heaven. I'm shocked like Matt Cross didn't get swallowed up and put under a hood in like the Dark Order or something, but he's constantly traveling the world. He's still just as athletic as he ever was. So, I mean, that's going to be like, in my mind is like exploding just thinking about like how anti-Cornette that match is going to be.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And Matt Cross is if you've never seen Matt Cross live, it's like a different experience to see him live. And that's when I used to go to Classic Ring of Honor, he would be the guy that when the show was over, I'd be like, dude, I don't understand why this guy's not like the biggest star in the world. Like, he's unbelievable. And I used to I was front row a lot of times during the Ring of Honor shows, and he's just flying all over the place. He's flying into the crowd. He's doing this. He's doing that. I mean, he is a remarkable wrestler and still is so great. And maybe one of the all-time more underrated wrestlers of all time. I don't know how that guy didn't become a megastar at any point. I just don't get it. I really don't.
So the weird thing, like, he literally is a star of the world. Like, he will be in like Turkey and fucking, the weirdest places doing pro wrestling and getting flown out there. So he kind of disappears from time to time because he's literally all over the world doing pro wrestling in places you didn't even think had it.
He's always in that Qatar. It's like, they have like Kevin Nash and this, and then Matt Cross. And you're like, he's on the poster. He's like one of the main guys on the poster too. And I forget what the name of that company is. Or it may just be Qatar Pro Wrestling or Qatar Pro Wrestling or whatever.
There's a few places like that where he's like one of the staples of the company, and like you didn't even realize like that country knew what wrestling was.
That's awesome. Good for him. But this is a hell of a show. It sucks that it's on like midnight. But man, if you're still in a wrestling mood, and you should be with this show, we said like give people a reason to go to your show. Don't let people say, you know what, I should go to bed or I should go to no, screw that. Go to this show. Ninja Mac and Matt Cross, Manora Suzuki, Barrett Brown. You better go to this show. You're here for wrestling anyway. You can catch your flight in the morning. It's fine.
The last WrestleMania weekend, they had a lot of success with this time slot and the VIP running that show. So I would not be surprised if they packed that building out.
Yeah, it looks really, really cool. So good for them. For that, and that wraps up our Texas Mania. So that is a hell of a weekend for you guys. You're obviously a small part of that, but because you bothered everybody, this came together, and it looks really, really cool. And I just want to give you guys credit, everybody, for getting credit for coming together and realizing for the greater good of Texas wrestling as a whole to go do this and not maybe worry so much about the politics and all this sort of stuff and just make it happen and just make sure that, a lot of wrestling fans are going to come to Texas for this Mania weekend, make sure that they know that, Texas wrestling, deserves to get respected and is among one of the best wrestling areas in the country and really in the world too. You guys got a lot of really good stuff going on in that area. So I'm very, very, I get some good stuff in Chicago, but at times I'm pretty jealous of what you guys do in Texas as well.
Yeah, and I think California is next, right? I hope that they do something similar up there too, right? Don't just hit yourself to like, one of the more well-known companies, right? Go out there and show what you are, show your flavor. I really appreciate the kind words. We understand, right? In the mainstream discussion of independent wrestling, Texas is kind of niche, but there's a lot of really good talent that's come out of here. Ricky Starks, Keith Lee, Sammy Guevara, all on national TV right now. And I'm probably leaving people out as well.
Yeah, ACH, we've always talked about it. As
yeah.
Well. Yeah, just.
So, there, you may hear there's a black hole down here on certain podcasts, but like there's a lot of talent down here. There's a lot of really good wrestling. Come check it out for sure.
Absolutely. So yeah, hopefully, if again, right now, as of this recording, we don't have any details on anything streaming live. We don't think anything will be live, but hopefully a lot of stuff will appear on demand, and you'll be able to watch a lot of this stuff as well. Like you said, you're going to put your stuff on YouTube. New Texas Pro will presumably be putting most of their stuff on IWTV. Hopefully, you're doing commentary for it, so hopefully it's going to work. So, but yeah, that looks good. So yeah, these are definitely shows to make sure you're checking out. And again, make sure you're supporting local wrestling and not just, like you said, not just companies coming down there, flying down there and doing their normal shit in Texas because everybody else is there. These are truly companies that are in Texas all the time. These are companies that are longtime companies that have been around forever. River City Wrestling's been around forever. Inspire Pro has been around for what was it? Is it a decade now for Inspire Pro? When did you guys really start?
We started we're a year away from a decade.
Wow,
we started in 2013.
Time flies, man. That's insane.
Jeez,
but
I've been doing Inspire longer than anything else I did. So,
wow, yeah, that's nuts, man.
Weird.
Time flies. But yeah, these are companies that deserve your attention, deserve your time. And if you're going down to WrestleMania Weekend, deserve a little bit of your money as well. So make sure you buy some tickets there. Head out to St. Jude Hall, Arlington, Texas, for Texas Mania 3. But Biss, anything else you want to plug or talk about before we bid you adieu?
Today we cut ticket prices by $10. Like we really want to get as many people as we can in the building. So if you were on the fence, jump on those tickets. You're going to save some money. At this point, I just want to get as many people in that building as I can. So, us and everybody else, man, go check it out.
Yeah, it's really cool what you guys are doing. So you can follow him on Twitter at BissSays. You can appreciate you coming on here, checking us, or coming on here, helping us preview these Texas Mania shows. And I hope you the biggest success on the weekend. And hope you guys kill it. And it's an awesome weekend, and everyone's feeling good afterwards. So.
Yeah, thank you, Rich, man. I appreciate you giving us the time, man, for sure.
Absolutely. Take care of this, and we'll talk to you later.
Hi, I'm Flo from Progressive. Being a baseball fanatic like me can be stressful. It's not all sports points and touchdowns. So Progressive is going to help you take your mind off your team for a moment. Instead of thinking about how they missed that goal point score, think about the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, letting you choose coverage options based on your budget, unlike your team that missed the end zone net area. Well, anyway, hope this distraction about Progressive's Name Your Price tool was helpful. It sure kept me from thinking about all those penalty balls. Yay, sports!
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.